during their 78 years of imprisonment. The solar system exploration team had taught the Earthlings their language. The chief elder's gaze slowly swept across the text. To the Solantia civilization, we are the representatives of humanity from Earth, the United States of America. The members of your exploration team are now under our protection. They have introduced us to your civilization, and we hold great admiration for your culture and technology. We write to you because Earth currently faces a formidable threat. A faction claiming to be the Yan Huang civilization is rising, led by an individual endowed with an unknown and formidable power. In a remarkably short span, they have established a fleet comprising 12 interstellar warships. These vessels exceed 10 kilometers in length and are equipped with energy weapons that surpass our comprehension, enabling them to traverse both the atmosphere and the void of space with ease. This faction poses an extreme danger. Their leader has proclaimed a vision to establish a global order centered around himself, and we, the Maligian United States, the most powerful nation on Earth, are at risk of being utterly subdued. More crucially, they may also pose a threat to your civilization, as their displayed technology has already transcended our understanding of the laws of physics. If allowed to develop unchecked, they may one day cast their gaze upon the stars and your territories. We are eager to collaborate with you. We can provide all intelligence regarding this faction, and in exchange, we hope you might dispatch a fleet to the solar system to confront this threat alongside us. We await your prompt response. The correspondence bears the official seal of the Maligian United States government, at least as they claim. The chief elder set down the information in his hand and raised his gaze to the 6 individuals surrounding the circular council table. Have you all finished reading? The 6 nodded in unison. To the right of the chief elder sat a middle-aged Serlantian, whose temple markings were relatively light, yet whose gaze was exceptionally sharp. He held the position of intelligence elder, tasked with coordinating all external information. We have conducted a preliminary verification of this information's authenticity. The intelligence elder spoke. Utilizing our civilization's communication protocol, encoded in a manner identical to that of the solar system exploration team. The time of transmission was separated by 78 years from the moment the exploration team lost contact. Based on the content, it is evident that the Earthlings have indeed mastered our language and engaged in profound communication with the imprisoned members of the exploration team. To the left of the chief elder sat a female Serlantian, her temple markings deeply etched. She served as the technology elder, responsible for evaluating all technology-related matters. The most critical piece of information pertains to those 12 interstellar warships. The technology elder's voice was soft, yet each word was distinct, according to the Earthling's description. These warships exceed 10 kilometers in length and are armed with energy weapons far beyond their comprehension. What does this imply? She paused, her gaze sweeping across the others. It implies that the technological level of these warships is approaching or even meeting our standards, perhaps even surpassing them. A murmur of unease rippled around the circular table. Surpassing? The Serlantian civilization boasts a history of 30,000 years. Space exploration commenced a millennium ago, and 3 centuries ago, they entered the grand age of space travel. Their technology is the culmination of 30 millennia of accumulated wisdom from countless generations. Yet, according to reports from 78 years ago, humanity on Earth had only just begun to grasp the rudimentary outcomes of the Industrial Revolution, lacking even the capability to reach their own satellites. 78 years. A mere 78 years. How could this be possible? Seated opposite the venerable elder of technology was a slightly corpulent, elderly Serlantian, his temples deeply etched with lines of wisdom. His title was the Elder of History, tasked with interpreting all anomalies from the perspective of civilization's development. 78 years, for our civilization, is but a fleeting moment. However, for a race with an average lifespan of merely a few decades, that duration spans 3 entire generations. Chapter 220. Speculations of the Serlantians, 3 generations. The Elder of History reiterated, contemplating the implications. Imagine if, within the span of 3 generations, our civilization were to leap from a primitive industrial phase to one of interstellar travel. Is such a feat conceivable? No one answered. For the response was painfully evident. It was impossible. The Serlantian civilization took 30,000 years to reach its present state. What right had a primitive race to traverse the same path in merely 3 generations? Unless, the Elder's voice sank to a whisper, they received some form of assistance. What assistance? I cannot say. The Elder shook his head, pondering aloud. Perhaps the technology aboard your exploration fleet's vessel was deciphered by them? Yet, the technology aboard that vessel was merely a relic from centuries past, insufficient to facilitate such a monumental leap. He paused, then uttered a conjecture that enveloped the assembly in a profound silence. Perhaps the leader of the Yanhuang civilization is not, in fact, a human from Earth. Around the circular council table, silence reigned once more. Not a human? What could that imply? An advanced civilization from a more distant realm? No one dared to ponder further, for the information was too scant. The gaze of the chief elder fell upon the holographic projection of 12 warships. These images, sent by the Earthlings, depicted 12 colossal vessels suspended in Earth's orbit. Their design starkly contrasted with that of Serlantian warships, lacking the sleek, flowing contours, replaced instead by more angular lines and a simplified silhouette. Yet, the palpable sense of oppression emanating from those ships was unmistakable, even through a static image and across a distance of 60 light-years. These were indeed interstellar warships, genuine vessels of combat, not the makeshift toys powered by chemical fuels that Earthlings employed. One more detail is noteworthy, the Elder of Intelligence interjected. Shortly after this information was received, communication was severed once more. The chief elder raised his brow slightly, a gesture akin to a human frowning among the Serlantians. Severed? Indeed. 10 months ago, we received this information. Afterward, we attempted to respond and inquire for further details, but received no reply. The communication devices of the Solar System Exploration Fleet, just as they did 78 years ago, have once again gone silent. What is the cause? Uncertain, the Elder of Intelligence replied, shaking his head. However, based on the descriptions in the message, it appears that the Yanhuang civilization has attained absolute dominion over Earth. They likely uncovered the exploration fleet's communication devices and subsequently took action. Are you suggesting they have controlled the exploration fleet and cut off communications? Quite possibly. The Chief Elder fell into a momentary silence. Then, he posed the most pivotal question. Is it conceivable that the Yanhuang civilization has already become aware of our existence? No one could provide an answer to this query. If the technological advancement of that civilization is indeed as the information suggests, having reached an interstellar level, they likely possess technologies akin to gravitational sensing and quantum detection. Although the spacecraft of the Solar System Exploration Team has crashed, its remnants remain. Should that civilization embark on a diligent search, they would eventually uncover the vessel and realize it originated from 60 light-years away. At that juncture, would they not take the initiative to approach us? The atmosphere surrounding the circular council table grew increasingly grave. The technology elder gently cleared her throat. There is another matter that demands our utmost attention. All eyes turned towards her. The 12 warships mentioned in the information, if they are indeed authentic, indicate that if this civilization has constructed such a fleet in a mere few years, their industrial capacity may far exceed our imagination. You are all aware of our shipbuilding pace. A primary battleship, from design to construction and testing, requires at least 5 years. Yet she gestured towards the holographic projection. According to Earthling accounts, these warships materialized within mere months. The engineers of the Sirlantia civilization, in that same span, could scarcely produce even a small reconnaissance vessel, and that Yanhuang civilization managed to fabricate 12 primary warships in a matter of months. This disparity instilled a profound sense of unease in everyone present. Moreover, the technology elder continued. The Earthlings mentioned in their information that the leader of that civilization possesses a genetic optimization serum capable of extending human life to 30,000 years. 30,000 years. The breaths of all those gathered around the circular council table quickened. 30,000 years. The Sirlantia civilization spent over a millennium researching genetic optimization to elevate the average lifespan from mere decades to 2,000 years. 2,000 years, a feat they take immense pride in, represents one of the greatest breakthroughs in their civilization's history, a culmination of the wisdom of countless generations of scientists. Yet, that Yanhuang civilization achieved the ability to extend life to 30,000 years in just 3 years? Or was it mere months? How could this be possible? This is inconceivable. This cannot be. A young elder seated in the corner blurted out. His role was that of a research representative, assisting the technology elder with daily affairs. 2,000 years is the pinnacle we have reached over millennia. Achieving 30,000 years necessitates a depth of genetic optimization that we cannot even begin to fathom. At our current technological level, it would take us at least 10,000 years to approach such a domain. Unless, he added, a profound caveat, unless their biotechnology has, from the very outset, far surpassed our own. Far surpassed. Those 4 words weighed heavily on the hearts of all present. The Sirlantia civilization, proud of its genetic technology for 30,000 years, believed itself to be at the zenith of cosmic biology. Consequently, a primitive race that had relied on chemical fuel rockets several decades ago suddenly unveiled a technology they would not have been able to grasp for another 10 millennia. This revelation was far more staggering than the might of 12 warships, for the vessels were mere instruments of warfare. The essence of longevity is foundational to civilization. An individual with a lifespan of nearly 2,000 years perceives the world in stark contrast to one who can endure for 30,000 years. The latter's strategic foresight, patience, and willingness to invest resources far exceed those of the former by magnitudes of 10, 100, or even 1,000. Should the leader of that Huang Yellow civilization indeed possess a lifespan of 30,000 years, he would embody a living museum of civilization, a veritable chronicle of history. A deity in his own right. The chief elder inhaled deeply. What title do they ascribe to the leader mentioned in the information? The intelligence elder perused the documents. Qin Feng, age 27, a human from Earth. Chapter 221. How dare Earthlings use us as tools? 27 years old. This figure left everyone present momentarily stunned. A being capable of living for 30,000 years is but a mere 27, akin to an infant, just beginning to open its eyes to the world, yet to learn the contemplations befitting a true immortal. Yet, this very infant has already constructed 12 interstellar battleships. What might he become at 200, 2,000, or even 20,000 years of age? No one dared to ponder further. The information also contained another point. The intelligence elder continued, asserting that the Earthlings claimed their willingness to collaborate with us in addressing this threat. Collaboration? The chief elder's lips twitched slightly, forming a semblance of a human sneer. Their so-called cooperation is merely a guise to exploit us against that Huang Yellow civilization. A race that only decades ago relied on chemical fuels now dares to wield us as weapons. Nevertheless, the information they provided is indeed credible. The technology elder cautioned that regardless of their intentions, this data informs us of a potential threat existing 60 light-years away. A potential threat? The history elder shook his head. No, it is not merely a potential threat. He rose and approached the holographic projection, activating the report sent back by the Solar System Exploration Team 78 years prior. The holographic display revealed the primitive Earth once more, devoid of satellites, orbital stations, or interstellar ports, merely a solitary blue planet adrift in the void. 78 years ago, they were still here. The history elder's hand glided gently over the projection, transitioning to the information from 10 months ago. 12 colossal warships quietly hovered in Earth's orbit. 78 years later, they have now arrived. He turned to face each individual around the circular council table. What of another 78 years hence? No one responded, for the answer was too terrifying. In another 78 years, will the fleet of the Huang Yellow civilization appear in the Nanu star system? 78 years hence, will the individual destined to live for 30,000 years stand upon the home planet of Saranthia, accompanied by his interstellar warriors? Will the Saranthi, who consider themselves the favored children of the cosmos, find themselves reduced to vassals, slaves, or mere artifacts in a museum of that civilization? We require further information. The voice of the chief elder shattered the silence. We remain unaware of the current advancements of the Yin Huang civilization. We do not know whether they have discovered our existence, nor do we comprehend their next course of action. Yet, one thing is certain. His gaze fell upon the holographic projection of the 12 warships. That civilization does not embody the threat as depicted by Earthlings. They mistakenly believe that the rise of that civilization is solely their own predicament. They are gravely mistaken. The tone of the chief elder grew unusually grave. 60 light years away lies a civilization that has traversed in 70 years the path we have taken 30,000 years to complete. 60 light years away, there exists a leader capable of propelling a primitive race into the interstellar age before reaching 30 years of age. 60 light years away, he paused, uttering the words that sent shivers down the spines of all present. There is a monster, one we cannot begin to comprehend, that is currently evolving. Silence enveloped the circular council table. After a prolonged pause, the elder of technology quietly inquired, "What shall we do?" The chief elder remained silent for an extended duration. Then, he lifted his gaze to the simulated starry sky above. Amongst that celestial expanse, a small, unremarkable star shone, 60 light years distant. "The sun wait," he said. "Wait. We can do naught but wait." The chief elder's voice bore a hint of resignation. Even our swiftest vessels would require 120 years to traverse 60 light years. Even if we dispatched a fleet now, by the time we arrive, it will already be. He did not finish his thought. Yet, all understood his implication. 120 years. For a race that, 78 years prior, still relied on chemical fuels. 120 years is ample time to transition from the primitive to the mythic. What use would it be to send a fleet now? By the time they arrive, they may confront an enemy beyond imagination. Shall we then do nothing? The young representative of scientific inquiry asked, unwilling to accept an action. Not nothing. The chief elder shook his head. We must observe, analyze, and prepare. From this day forth, monitoring the direction of the solar system shall be our highest priority. All available detection equipment must be directed towards that horizon. Furthermore, he turned to the intelligence elder. We must seek to re-establish contact, not with the controlled exploration team, but directly with other factions on Earth. Since the Yanwang civilization seeks to establish a global order, there must be those who dissent. These discontented individuals will serve as our source of information. The intelligence elder nodded. Understood. The chief elder rose. The meeting was adjourned. Around the circular conference table stood 6 individuals, who subsequently rose and departed from the half-buried edifice. Only the chief elder remained, rooted in place. He gazed at the simulated starry sky, fixating on a star located 60 light years away for an extended period. Finally, he murmured a question. What exactly are you? The Yanhuang civilization of the solar system? In the ensuing days, the grand assembly hall of the central continent of the planet Sarandia remained illuminated throughout the night. 7 elders, alongside 37 high-ranking officials summoned urgently from various colonial star systems, congregated around the vast circular table, engaging in fervent debates. The crux of the discourse was singular. How should they respond to the Yanhuang civilization situated 60 light years away? On the first day, the voices of the war hawks resonated the loudest. Esteemed colleagues, may I pose a question? Spoke a governor named Ruifeng, hailing from a frontier star system. His lineage had resided for generations in the colonial system closest to their home planet, where a rebellion by a splinter faction had previously erupted, and he had personally endured that protracted conflict. At this moment, his voice bore an undeniable urgency. That Yanhuang civilization, merely 78 years ago, was still playing in the mud on Earth, yet now possesses 12 interstellar warships. What might they achieve in another 78 years? Chapter 222. The difficulty of the expedition is daunting. Ruifeng scanned the assembly, his gaze intense. 120 ships? 1,200? Or will they appear directly outside our home planet? We cannot afford to wait. His voice echoed through the assembly hall. Their rate of advancement is beyond the comprehension of any present here. According to the information from Earth, the leader of that civilization is merely 27 years old. 27. Here, that age is still engaged in primary education. Yet he commands 12 capital warships. Have you considered that while we hesitate, debate, and squander time over these past months, that 27-year-old leader may very well be 28 by now? In a year's time, how many more warships could he produce? How much further could his technology progress? I do not know, but I dare not gamble. Ruifeng's gaze fixed on the chief elder. I advocate for the immediate initiation of the expedition plan. Let us concentrate all available fleets, preparing them with utmost urgency, and set forth to the solar system. We must extinguish that civilization in its cradle before it truly flourishes. 60 light years, though distant, is not insurmountable. Our ships can travel at 0.5 times the speed of light, making the one-way journey 120 years. Even accounting for preparation time and mid-journey resupplies, it would take a maximum of 150 years. After 150 years, we could stand at the edge of the solar system, confronting what is termed the Yanhuang civilization. 150 years is not an excessive duration in our lifetimes. Each of you present can likely witness that time. Let us witness for ourselves the civilization that instills fear in the hearts of Earthlings, and if it is indeed as the information suggests, let us eradicate it. If it has escalated to a point beyond our control, at least we have gained knowledge, at least we have made an attempt. And at least we have not remained idle, waiting for it to confront us. After speaking, Commander Ruefing heavily settled back into his seat. A murmur of low discussions arose in the assembly hall. Some nodded in agreement, while others shook their heads, some furrowed their brows, and others appeared deep in thought. Shortly thereafter, another voice emerged. The words of Commander Ruefing seemed quite reasonable. However, I have several inquiries I wish to pose. The speaker was a notably older commander hailing from a colony system 15 light-years from the home planet. His name was Deep Thought. Renowned for his prudence within the administrative framework of the Solandia civilization, Deep Thought rose to his feet, his tone composed. First question, how will the expeditionary fleet make the journey? The theoretical value for a one-way trip is 120 years. In reality, traveling at 0.5 times the speed of light necessitates accounting for the gravitational influences of stellar bodies along the route, the resistance of interstellar matter, the aging of the spacecraft, and the condition of the crew. All these factors combined will only extend the actual travel time, never shorten it. 150 years is the most optimistic estimate. Second question, once the expeditionary fleet arrives, how will they engage in combat? We are unaware of the exact number of warships possessed by the Yanhuang civilization. The information from Earth states they have only 12 vessels, but how reliable is this data? The inhabitants of Earth themselves admit that the pace of development of that civilization is utterly incomprehensible to them. What if, by the time we arrive, they possess 120 ships? Or even 1,200? How many ships can our expeditionary fleet muster? 200? 300? If it is 300 against 12, victory is assured. But what if it is 300 against 300? Or more? Third question, even if we achieve victory, then what? The solar system lies 60 light-years away from us. If we win, do we need to station troops? If so, how shall we address the logistics of supply? Resupplying would only occur once every 120 years. How long could a garrison endure? If we do not garrison, what then is the purpose of this battle? Merely to eliminate a threat, only to watch helplessly as that star system is seized by other forces? Fourth question, the most crucial inquiry. Deep Thought's gaze surveyed all present. If we dispatch our main fleet on an expedition, who will defend our homeland? Our colonial systems are scattered over an expanse of approximately 30 light-years, with distances between them often spanning several light-years or more. A single fleet mobilization would take decades. If our main fleet departs from the homeland, what will happen if threats arise from other directions? What if, during the 150 years of our expedition, the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization arrives first? By that time, our homeland would possess no forces capable of repelling them. Having concluded his remarks, Deep Thought also returned to his seat. The discussions within the assembly hall grew louder. Ruefing immediately stood to counter. I have considered all that you have mentioned. But the issue lies in whether we shall do nothing and simply wait? Wait for that Yanhuang civilization to develop to a level of sufficient strength before they actively seek us out? You argue that the risks of the expedition are too great. Have you ever considered that the risks of not embarking on an expedition are, in fact, far greater? The pace of development of that civilization is beyond our comprehension. Perhaps it would not take 150 years. They might appear at the fringes of our territory in 50, 30, or even 10 years. By then, we may find ourselves devoid of any time to prepare. Deep reflection countered sharply. It is precisely for this reason that we must bolster our domestic defenses rather than dispatch our limited fleet to face certain demise. To await the enemy's approach while utilizing our homeland defenses to deplete their expeditionary forces is the most fundamental principle of military strategy. A distance of 60 light-years presents a formidable barrier for them as well, regardless of how swiftly they progress. Traversing such vast expanses will require no less time than it would for us. When they finally arrive, we shall be ready with the most robust fortifications and ample preparations to greet them. This is the most prudent strategy. Prudent? Sharpedge scoffed, asserting that your notion of prudence places the battlefield on our home planet, allowing the flames of war to encroach upon our very doorsteps. At least we have a doorstep to defend. Deep reflection stood resolute, retorting that your expedition would bring the flames of conflict to the doorsteps of others. But only if you can reach them first. The two stood at an impasse, their exchange growing increasingly tense within the council chamber. The chief elder raised his hand and gently pressed it down. Both men fell silent. We shall conclude for today, he stated calmly. We will continue tomorrow. The following day, the debate resumed. This time, the voices supporting the expedition were noticeably diminished, as the questions posed by Deep Reflection proved challenging to address. The difficulties of the expedition were indeed formidable. Chapter 223. The Yanhuang civilization is the thorn. We must extract a journey of 120 years and an expeditionary fleet comprising 300 warships. The time required to mobilize fleets and resources from various colonial star systems, the challenges of mid-journey resupply, and the potential consequences of defeat. Each issue loomed like an insurmountable mountain over those advocating for the expedition. Yet, those opposing the expedition had not entirely gained the upper hand. For the question posed by Sharp Edge remained unavoidable. What if we do nothing and simply wait? What if the Yanhuang civilization arrives sooner than anticipated? What if their fleet size and combat capabilities exceed those of the Surlandia civilization's defenses? What then shall we do? In the council chamber, both sides remained steadfast in their positions, unable to persuade the other. Until the third day, when a seldom-heard elder statesman rose slowly to his feet. His name was Farsight. one of the most seasoned strategic advisors of the Surlandia civilization, having participated in the strategic formulation of 3 secession wars. The lines on his temples were so dense that his original skin tone was nearly obscured. I have a suggestion, he began, his voice soft, yet it silenced the room. The expedition is indeed too daunting. A journey of 120 years entails too many variables. Should the fleet encounter unforeseen circumstances en route, we would have no opportunity for redress. However, doing nothing is equally untenable. The rate of development of the Yanhuang civilization undeniably renders us restless. After a moment of contemplation, Yuan Wang slowly articulated his proposal. We can establish a defensive line midway. All eyes turned towards him. At the fringes of our territory, towards the direction of the solar system, lies the Xenu galaxy. He summoned a holographic projection, indicating a rather inconspicuous point of light on the star chart. The Xenu galaxy is situated approximately 10 light-years from the planet Sarantia and around 50 light-years from the solar system. It is a relatively unremarkable galaxy, dominated by a K-type orange dwarf star slightly smaller than our Sun, hosting 3 terrestrial planets, of which the second has been rendered habitable through terraforming. A colonial outpost exists there, with a population of about 200 million, primarily engaged in the extraction of rare minerals from the Kuiper Belt at the galaxy's periphery. Pointing to this galaxy, Yuan Wang suggested that if the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization were indeed to arrive, they would most likely reach this location first, 50 light-years away. If they travel at 0.5 times the speed of light, their arrival would be in a century. Should their velocity exceed this, the duration would be shorter. Yet, we remain oblivious to when they might come and the speed at which they would travel. Thus, we must assume they could arrive at any moment. We can deploy a defensive line within the Xenu galaxy. Yuan Wang's finger traced lightly across the star chart. In the outer regions of this galaxy, directed towards the solar system, we should undertake large-scale deployment of electromagnetic railguns. Not merely a few hundred, but thousands, more the better. The projectiles of the railguns, in the vacuum of space, have virtually no range limitations. We can launch a considerable number of projectiles towards the solar system, creating a veritable barrage. These projectiles would travel at 0.5 times the speed of light. Should the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization encounter this barrage, even a single projectile striking them could result in catastrophic consequences. This is not aimed at their annihilation. Rather, it is intended to delay them, sap their resources, compel them to decelerate and maneuver, and exhaust their energy shields. More critically, this barrage would unveil their position. The energy bursts generated upon impact with enemy vessels could be detected by us. We would become aware of their arrival, ascertain their approximate location, and recognize their passage through our defensive line. In this manner, we would gain the necessary time to mobilize our native fleet and prepare for confrontation. Once Yuan Wang concluded his proposal, a profound silence enveloped the council chamber. All gazes were fixed upon that diminutive point of light on the star chart. Xenu, 50 light-years distant. If the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization were indeed to come, this would represent the first obstacle they encounter. After a moment of reflection, Shenxi was the first to speak. This plan is feasible. Ruifeng remained silent for a moment before nodding in agreement, far superior to mere waiting. The chief elder's gaze settled upon Yuan Wang. How much time will it require? What resources will be necessary? Yuan Wang shook his head. I cannot say, as there are too many uncertainties. We do not know when the Yanhuang civilization will arrive. Thus, we must construct as swiftly as possible, building as much and as quickly as we can. The materials for the railguns can be sourced from the local asteroid belt of the Xenu galaxy. Personnel for construction can be mobilized from Xenu and the surrounding star systems. Transporting supplies from the rear takes an excessively long time, spanning distances of several light-years, with each shipment requiring over a decade. We cannot afford to wait. Therefore, we must utilize local resources and dedicate ourselves to construction. If we can erect 10,000 cannons, we shall do so. If we can build 100,000, we shall strive for that as well. Each additional cannon, each extra round of ammunition, enhances our chances of victory. The chief elder remained silent for an extended period before posing the most critical question. What about the research on propulsion technology? Yuan Wang nodded in agreement. We shall proceed concurrently. While we construct the Xenu defensive line, we will concentrate all our domestic research efforts to vigorously pursue more advanced propulsion technologies. A speed of 0.5 times the speed of light is far too slow. A one-way journey of 120 years restricts all our strategic options. If we could elevate our speed to the speed of light, or even to 2 or 5 times that, everything would change. At that point, expeditions would no longer be an unattainable dream. Even if the Yanhuang civilization does not come to us, we could proactively seek them out. The chief elder rose, and all eyes turned towards him. We shall act according to the suggestion of the Chancellor Yuan Wang. The Xenu star system will be fully fortified. All mobilizable resources will be prioritized for the construction of the Xenu defensive line. Simultaneously, the research system will be entirely redirected, concentrating efforts on propulsion technology. Regardless of the resources required or the time needed, this direction must yield breakthroughs. As for the expedition, he paused. Its initiation shall be deferred. For now, we lack the capacity for such undertakings. Forcing an expedition would merely send our limited fleet into an abyss. However, should the day come when we achieve breakthroughs in propulsion technology, and when our fleet scale and strength are adequate to support an expedition, the chief elder's gaze sharpened. At that time, the Yanhuang civilization will be the thorn we must extract. The meeting concluded, and the resolution was set. On the very day the resolution was passed, news spread through the quantum communication system, reaching every colonial star system of the Surlantia civilization. Chapter 224. We shall construct thousands of orbital cannons. The Xenu star system, once a quiet border mining system, overnight became the focus of the entire civilization. The administrative center of the Xenu star system is a dome-shaped structure partially embedded in the ground, significantly smaller than the assembly hall on the home planet. Yet, at this moment, it was filled with engineers, commanders, and supply coordinators arriving from various star systems. The highest chancellor of the Xenu star system is a middle-aged Sri Lankan named Jian. His temples are not deeply lined, but his gaze conveys a reassuring steadiness. Upon receiving the order, he stood by the window of the administrative center, gazing at the orange-red star outside, lost in thought for a long while. Xenu, his home. He had lived here for over a century, witnessing this small colony grow from a mere population of tens of thousands to 200 million. Observing the outer asteroid belt transform from an overlooked expanse into a crucial mining base. He had believed he would continue to live here until the end of his days. But now, everything had changed. This place would become a line of defense. Here shall become a battleground. Jinyan inhaled deeply, turning to face the throng gathered in the administrative center. Have you all received the message? The crowd nodded in unison. Then let us commence. His voice resonated with a calmness reminiscent of scheduling a routine mineral dispatch. Step 1. Inventory all resources in the Xenu local area. Metal reserves, energy supplies, engineering equipment, and construction personnel. Whatever is usable, document it all. Step 2. Establish contact with all nearby star systems. The resources within Xenu will undoubtedly be insufficient. We require support, personnel, equipment, and technological aid. No matter the distance, if they can come, we shall welcome them. Step 3. He paused, his gaze resting on the star map, directed towards the solar system. Designate the deployment locations for the orbital cannons. They must be as dispersed and densely concentrated as possible, covering all potential vectors of attack. Let us begin. On the periphery of the Xenu system, facing the solar system, lay a relatively desolate expanse. This area was far removed from stars, planets, and asteroid belts, at least under normal circumstances. However, in the ensuing year, this void would transform. The first engineering team arrived at the designated deployment zone on the 7th day following the orders. They were aboard an aging engineering vessel, its hull bearing the scars from repairs made to asteroid mining equipment decades prior. The ship was crowded with 300 engineers, comprising seasoned veterans and fresh recruits. Through the vessel's portholes, the young engineers gazed into the vast, dark void. There was nothing, only a distant, diminutive orange star casting a feeble glow. Is this the place? One young engineer could not restrain himself from asking. Indeed, it is, nodded the lead engineer, an elder with years of experience. In the coming years, we shall construct a defensive line here. What kind of defensive line? The elder pointed towards the emptiness ahead. Orbital cannons. Thousands upon thousands of them. The young engineers exchanged perplexed glances. Thousands of orbital cannons? In this empty void? How shall we construct them? Another young engineer inquired. The elder gestured towards the faintly discernible points of light in the distance, which were the asteroid belt surrounding the Xenu system. Do you see those asteroids? They will be our source of materials. The barrels of the orbital cannons require metal, and the asteroids are abundant in it. The energy systems of the cannons necessitate reactors, and the asteroids also yield fusion fuel. As for the projectiles, the elder chuckled softly. That is even simpler. Just select an asteroid, shape it suitably, and it becomes an excellent projectile. The young engineers fell silent, envisioning the forthcoming scene. Amidst this void, they would gradually construct thousands of orbital cannons from those cold celestial bodies. What a colossal undertaking it would be. How long would it take? Do not dwell on it too much. The elder engineer patted the shoulder of a nearby young man. We will take it step by step. In a single day, one gun is constructed, amounting to 365 guns within a year. In a decade, this totals 3,650 guns. A century is a span too vast to contemplate fully. Yet, perhaps they truly require such an extensive duration. Perhaps the long-anticipated Huang civilization, which may arrive at an indeterminate time, will grant them the necessary time. Thus, the construction commenced. The initial engineering teams selected an asteroid, approximately 5 kilometers in diameter, within the asteroid belt as their primary source of materials. A fleet of mining vessels commenced operations simultaneously, employing laser cutting equipment to meticulously strip away layers from the asteroid's surface, extracting its metallic minerals. These minerals were transported to small smelting apparatuses aboard the vessels, where they were refined into standard metal ingots. Subsequently, these ingots were conveyed to a construction site not far from the asteroid belt, which was itself an asteroid, repurposed into a temporary assembly facility for railguns. Within the assembly plant, engineers heated, forged, and welded the metal ingots, painstakingly assembling railgun barrels that extended hundreds of meters in length. Each railgun required not only the barrel, but also an electromagnetic acceleration system, an energy supply mechanism, a fire control system, and a cooling system. The engineers toiled ceaselessly, allowing themselves only 4 hours of rest each day. No one complained, for they understood they were racing against time, against an enemy whose arrival was shrouded in uncertainty. 3 months later, the first batch of 10 railguns was completed. Jian Yin personally visited the assembly facility, observing the 10 colossal structures quietly suspended in the void. Each gun's barrel measured approximately 300 meters in length and 2 meters in diameter, constructed entirely from metals extracted from the asteroid belt. They were affixed to specially designed bases, which connected to a completely transformed asteroid that served as both their ammunition depot and energy station. Commence the test firing. Jian Yin instructed. The operator at gun position 1 pressed the launch button. Silence enveloped the vacuum. In such an environment, all discharges are soundless. Yet, All present felt the tremor, the ripples left in space as 500 tons of mass tore through at 0.5 times the speed of light. On the holographic screen, the projectile, just launched, trailed a faint wake, vanishing in the direction of the solar system at a velocity imperceptible to the naked eye. It was destined to traverse the cosmos for countless years, perhaps forever, until ensnared by the gravitational field of a distant star or colliding with an unknown planet. Perhaps one day, it would strike the approaching fleet of the Huang civilization. Proceed, Jian Yin commanded. The 10 railguns began to fire in succession, each projectile disappearing into the void at 0.5 times the speed of light. This barrage was gradually taking shape. Chapter 225. 1,760,000,000 shots following the initiation of the first batch of railgun firings. Additional engineering teams began to arrive in waves. 3 groups of engineers were dispatched from the nearest colonial star system to Xenu. From more distant galaxies came an influx of mining vessels and smelting equipment. From the home planet, the most advanced designs for railguns and experts in fire control systems were sent forth. In the void surrounding the Xenu star system, an increasing clamor has emerged. A multitude of orbital cannons have been assembled and affixed to their respective asteroid bases, commencing the launch of projectiles in the direction of the solar system. Within a year, the number of these cannons reached 300. 2 years later, it escalated to 1,000, and after 3 years, it soared to 3,000. Each cannon fires at a rate of 1 projectile per minute, resulting in a staggering output of 3,000 projectiles per minute, translating to 180,000 per hour for 132 million per day, and an astonishing 1,576,000,000 per year. These projectiles trace invisible trajectories through the void, forming an immense, ever-expanding web that envelopes the Xenu star system's approach to the solar system. Any object traversing from that direction, whether a spacecraft or an asteroid, whether an aggressor or an errant celestial body, risks colliding with this net. Even being struck by a mere projectile could yield catastrophic consequences, as these projectiles travel at 5 times the speed of light. At this velocity, a single 500-ton projectile possesses kinetic energy sufficient to obliterate any known material structure. Can energy shields withstand such onslaught? Perhaps. But what if they were to be struck 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times? Every shield has its limits, and this net is composed of countless projectiles. By the 5th year, the orbital cannons have reached 8,000 in number, silently suspended in the void like 8,000 silent stars. They fire once every minute, sending yet another projectile toward the solar system. In the vastness of space, these projectiles have formed an extensive barrage stretching for countless kilometers. The closer one gets to Xenu, the denser the barrage becomes. The farther away, the more dispersed it is. Nevertheless, any object approaching from the solar system must traverse this barrage before entering the Xenu star system. Jekon gazes at the faintly visible orbital cannons in the distance. For 5 years, he has scarcely left this place. He has witnessed the transformation of this once empty expanse into its current state. Countless times over these 5 years, he has envisioned the scenario of the Huang civilization fleet colliding with this barrage, the moment of their inevitable encounter. What would their reaction be? Would they decelerate? Would they maneuver? Would they even perceive the existence of this barrage? He cannot say. All he knows is that they have exerted their utmost effort, with 8,000 orbital cannons unleashing projectiles at a rate of 8,000 per minute toward the solar system. This represents the largest-scale defensive operation ever completed by the Sarandia civilization in the shortest span of time. Should the Huang civilization indeed come, he hopes this barrage will serve as a barrier, even if only for a moment, even if merely to slow them down, depleting their energy shields and revealing their position. At the very least, it will grant Xenu a warning. At the very least, there will be time to prepare on the home planet. At the very least, the civilization of Serlantia will not confront the adversary from 60 light-years away unprepared. Jian Yin turned around and gazed in another direction, towards the planet of Serlantia. 10 light-years away. For a spacecraft traveling at 0.5 times the speed of light, that translates to a voyage of 20 years. However, for quantum communication, the delay is virtually non-existent. How is the research on propulsion technology progressing back home? He inquired of his aide. The aide shook his head, indicating uncertainty. It is unclear. But it seems the advancements are not promising. Jian Yin fell silent for a moment, contemplating propulsion technology. If they could make breakthroughs in this area, if they could achieve greater speeds, everything would be transformed. Expeditions would no longer remain an unattainable dream, and pursuit would not be an elusive hope. By then, they would no longer have to passively wait here. By then, they could actively seek out the Yanhuang civilization. Jian Yin pulled back his thoughts and once again looked out at the void filled with orbital cannons. 8,000 cannons. Still insufficient. Far from enough. Continue building, he commanded. Build as many as possible. Inform the home planet that Xenu requires more engineers, more equipment, and more resources. Regardless of which star system they are sourced from or how long it takes to arrive, as long as they can be delivered, we will continue to expand. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, the more, the better. He paused, for they do not know when their adversaries might arrive. Perhaps a century from now. Perhaps tomorrow. Within the warp bubble of the Yanhuang civilization, time flows in an alternate manner. For the on-duty commander of the bridge crew aboard the Conqueror 001, the 5 years have merely been a collection of countless shifts, training sessions, and holographic meetings. Yet for the 3.5 million Star Warriors, it marks the 5th year since leaving their homeland. 5 years, 1,826 days, 43,824 hours. In a state of travel at 10 times the speed of light, everything outside is frozen in time. The starlight, stretched into infinite strands, induces a peculiar dizziness after prolonged observation, as if it is not the spacecraft moving forward, but the entire universe retreating backward. Thus, they seldom gaze out the window. Instead, their attention is focused on the interior of the warship, where a complete world exists. Conqueror 007, E7 level, recreational area. This is one of the liveliest places aboard the entire warship. Along the 3-kilometer circular corridor, various entertainment facilities are dispersed. Holographic cinemas, virtual reality gaming pods, concert halls, libraries, coffee bars, tea houses, and even a pedestrian street meticulously replicated from an ancient town on the Yinhuan continent. At this moment, the pedestrian street bustles with activity. Soldiers clad in black combat suits stroll in small groups, some engaged in conversation, others merely wandering, while some sit at the roadside tea house sipping tea. Their combat uniforms have been replaced with more comfortable attire, yet most still habitually wear black, a color that has become ingrained in their very bones. Old Wang, over here. A rugged voice emanated from the tea room. Wang Jingwo paused, turning his gaze towards the sound. At a window-side table, Li Weiguo was waving at him. 2 cups of tea sat on the table, their clear liquid steaming gently. Wang Jingwo smiled and stepped inside. Chapter 226. Personal relationships beyond work. What brings you here today? He seated himself opposite Li Weiguo, lifted his cup, and took a sip. Didn't you mention your team had simulation training today? It concluded in the morning. Li Weiguo waved his hand dismissively. I have the afternoon off to take a stroll. Wang Jingwo nodded, his gaze drifting to the outside. Beyond the window lay an ancient-style pedestrian street bustling with life. Among the throngs were soldiers clad in black uniforms and various individuals in different attires. Light blue logistics personnel, white-clad medical staff, and his attention was captured by a group of young women dressed in vibrant dresses. These women varied in appearance. Some were blonde with blue eyes. Others had black hair and yellowish skin. Some were tall while others petite. Some walked in clusters while others sat alone on benches lining the street. What are you looking at? Li Weiguo followed his gaze and chuckled. Missing your sister-in-law? Wang Jingwo withdrew his gaze, shaking his head without responding. Li Weiguo did not press further, continuing to sip his tea. After a moment, Wang Jingwo suddenly spoke. Weiguo, do you think the children will still recognize us when we return? Li Weiguo paused, a slight tremor in his hand holding the teacup. The children. His daughter Nyonyo was merely 7 when they departed. Now, she must be 12. 5 years. In their journey at 10 times the speed of light, time flows normally. Their 5 years equate to 5 years on Earth. Nyonyo has matured from 7 to 12. In another 5 years, she will be 17. And in yet another 5. Li Weiguo inhaled deeply, setting down his cup. She will recognize us. His voice was firm. Even after 50 years, she will know our faces. Wang Jingwo met his gaze and smiled, refraining from piercing the thin veil of his resolve. In the tea room, the 2 veterans silently sipped their tea. Outside, the young women in their colorful dresses continued to pass by in groups. These women were the logistics personnel recruited 5 years ago from Paradise Island. The Eastern Japan Special Zone, the North American Special Zone, and various parts of the world, 1 million of them. They had their own quarters, living spaces, and work arrangements. No one referred to them as JJ. The official designation was logistics personnel, and in more formal terms, the Expeditionary Force Psychological and Life Support Corps. Yet, everyone understood their true purpose. The agreement clearly outlined their duties, which included, but were not limited to, providing psychological counseling, emotional companionship, life care, and all services that might alleviate the mental strain of prolonged space travel. To put it more plainly, they offered a place for the young warriors, invigorated by 3 rounds of genetic optimization and bursting with energy, to unwind. Genetic optimization enhanced not only lifespan and strength, but also desire. In the protracted journey through the stars, the absence of an outlet for pent-up energy can spiral into restlessness. Restlessness can evolve into friction, friction into conflict, and conflict into a scenario involving 3.5 million young men confined within a limited space. This creates a scene that would haunt the dreams of any commander. Thus, they arrived, 1 million women, offering their bodies as a release valve for these 3.5 million warriors. Simple, direct, and effective. Yet, every solution comes with its cost. The most immediate cost is the risk of pregnancy. The coexistence of 1 million young women with 3.5 million vigorous young men in a completely enclosed environment, without any preventive measures, would inevitably lead to foreseeable consequences. It is not that conception is impossible, it is that they must not conceive. A pregnancy entails at least a year of absence from work, necessitating additional medical resources, and the future complexities of addressing the identities of those children, offspring bearing the blood of the Huang and Yin lineage, yet also possessing a portion of heritage from the service personnel. The Huang and Yin civilization would not accept such children, as its citizens must be of pure Huang and Yin descent. This is a matter of principle. Therefore, it is imperative to curb the issue at its source. The medical team proposed the most straightforward solution, long-acting contraceptive implants. Prior to boarding the vessel, all logistical personnel underwent subdermal implantation. This device, the size of a grain of rice, is embedded in the inner arm and continuously releases minute quantities of hormones, effectively preventing pregnancy for 5 years. After 5 years, it can be replaced. If one desires to conceive, it can be removed at any time. However, for the vast majority aboard this voyage, none would choose to remove it. For pregnancy signifies the loss of employment, which in turn leads to a loss of income. The prospect of their lucrative remuneration for this extended journey evaporating into thin air is not a folly anyone would entertain. Thus, for 5 years, the medical bay of the logistics service module has not witnessed a single case of unintended pregnancy, only the occasional cold, fever, minor injuries, or psychological issues. Next, in the medical bay, a female doctor in a white uniform called out without lifting her gaze. A young woman entered and took a seat before her. The doctor finally looked up and regarded her, a girl of East Asian descent in her early 20s, with delicate features but slightly reddened eyes. What seems to be the problem? The girl lowered her head, remaining silent for a moment before softly replying, I cannot sleep. For how long? Half a month. The doctor nodded, activating the holographic screen to access her records. Yuko, 24 years old, from the East Asian Special District. Occupation prior to boarding, nightclub hostess. Time aboard, 5 years and 3 months. Work record, normal. Is there something on your mind? Yuko remained silent. The doctor waited a moment before rephrasing her inquiry. Have you encountered any unpleasant experiences? Yuko's eyes reddened again. After another pause, she whispered, he has been transferred. The doctor raised an eyebrow slightly. Who? Yuko shook her head and refrained from mentioning any names. The female doctor understood. Such occurrences were not uncommon in the logistics service modules. The young warriors and the youthful women, during their protracted voyages, inevitably developed certain attachments. Particularly among those service personnel frequently assigned to the same warship and compartment, prolonged interaction often gave rise to inappropriate emotions. The doctor sighed. You must have reviewed the terms when you signed the agreement, right? Yuko nodded. What does Article 3 state? Service personnel and expeditionary members shall not establish any personal relationships that transcend professional boundaries. In the event of emotional entanglements, both parties must undergo psychological evaluations, and based on the results, adjustments to their work positions or service targets shall be made. Yuko lowered her head, acknowledging, I know I shouldn't, but... She left her thought unfinished. But what? Was it that the individual treated her kindly? That this person lingered a little longer each time? That he promised to assist her in acquiring a Yanhuang citizenship upon their return? Ah, how adept you are at weaving dreams. All of it was false. She recognized it as such. Yet, at times, even falsehoods are comforting to hear. The doctor remained silent for a moment, then tapped on the holographic screen. I'll prescribe you a week's supply of sleep aids. Take one before bedtime, and do not exceed the dosage. Additionally, she lifted her gaze to meet Yuko's. Adjust your mindset. You are here to work, not to pursue romantic entanglements. Do you understand? Yuko nodded, accepted the prescription, stood, and exited. The door closed behind her. The doctor sighed and shook her head. Such matters were all too frequent. Yet, no matter how often she encountered them, there was nothing she could do. Rules were rules. Those warriors were the descendants of Yanhuang. They bore the purest blood of this civilization, representing its future hope. They could love whom they wished, marry whom they desired. That was their freedom. However, those whom they cherished, loved, or wed could only be fellow descendants of Yanhuang. No one else held that privilege. Thus, from the very beginning, these girls were never meant to be anything more than tools, mere instruments to satisfy physiological needs, and nothing beyond that. The doctor withdrew her thoughts, lowered her head, and continued to peruse the next medical record. Next, in stark contrast to the bustling logistics service compartment, the other end of the warship revealed an entirely different world, the cultivation area. The cultivation zone of Conqueror 012 was situated on the G level of the midsection of the warship. There, 10 entire levels had been transformed into a vast botanical factory. LED simulated sunlight streamed from the dome above, illuminating rows of planting racks filled with an array of vegetables, leafy greens, cabbages, lettuces, spinach, chives, cilantro, as well as tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, eggplants, and strawberries. Over the span of 5 years, these plants had been harvested countless times. Each harvest of vegetables supplies a portion to the fleet's dining facilities. Another portion is dispatched to the logistics service compartments, and a final segment is exchanged by the soldiers for a change in flavor. Although the fleet offers synthesized nutritional supplements that taste quite agreeable, the monotony of it all fosters a yearning for genuine sustenance. At this moment, in the cultivation area, groups of soldiers wander about, some strolling leisurely, others engaged in light conversation, while a few crouch before the planting racks, gazing dreamily at the verdant vegetables. Among them is Wang Jiangwo, who crouches before a row of lettuce, entranced by the tender green leaves. 5 years have passed. Over this span, he has witnessed countless starry skies, seen the distorted light strands of the galaxy shaped by warp bubbles, and observed the ever-approaching target on the holographic star map. Yet, amidst all these wonders, it is these green plants that bring him the greatest comfort. Perhaps because they evoke memories of Earth, reminders of the vegetable patch at his childhood home in Sichuan, of the chives his mother cultivated, the cucumber trellis his father built, and the tomatoes his wife watered. Missing home? A voice interrupts his reverie. Wang Jiangwo looks up to see a young soldier he does not recognize, also admiring the lettuce. He nods slightly, a bit. The young soldier smiles and squats beside him. Me too. Where are you from? Shandong, Taiyan. Wang Jiangwo's eyes brighten. At the foot of Mount Tai? Yes. And you? Sichuan, Chengdu Plain. The young soldier chuckles, the land of abundance. I hear there are fresh vegetables year-round there. Wang Jiangwo grins, indeed. I never appreciated it back home. But now he shakes his head, leaving the thought unspoken. After a moment of silence, the young soldier suddenly inquires, do you think there is such greenery over there? He gestures toward the direction of Serendia. Wang Jiangwo hesitates, then shakes his head. I'm not sure. There should be. I suppose. The young soldier muses aloud. A civilization that has existed for 30,000 years must surely cultivate something. Wang Jiangwo can't help but chuckle. Perhaps they don't eat vegetables at all? What do they eat then? I don't know. Maybe stones. Or light. They exchange a glance and burst into laughter. As the laughter subsides, Wang Jiangwo suddenly remarks, regardless of what they eat, once we arrive, we can certainly let them sample ours. The young soldier raises an eyebrow. Sample what? Wang Jiangwo gestures to the lettuce before them. This. The young soldier pauses, then laughs even harder. Are you suggesting we conquer aliens with lettuce? What is wrong with that? Wang Jingwo replies earnestly. Once we triumph, we'll plant a vegetable garden on Serindia's home planet, growing our greens, cabbages, chives, and cilantro, allowing those little gray beings to experience the cuisine of the descendants of Yin and Huan. The young soldier laughs so hard he can hardly stand. After the laughter subsides, he gazes at the lettuce and softly asks, when will that be? Wang Jingwo falls silent for a moment before replying, soon. The young soldier nods, and they both fall into silence once more. Gazing quietly at the verdant leaves, each lost in their own thoughts, 5 years have slipped by, day by day. Enveloped in the warp bubble, 24 Conqueror-class capital ships, accompanied by over 100 auxiliary vessels, advance relentlessly towards Sarantia at 10 times the speed of light. Those who were born, grew, and perished during these 5 years. No, they neither came into existence nor departed from it. Over the span of 5 years, no new life has emerged within the fleet, nor has there been any unforeseen demise. There have only been countless training sessions, numerous rotations of rest, endless conversations in the tea room, countless moments of daydreaming in the cultivation area, and innumerable ambiguous encounters in the logistics service compartments. After 5 years, everyone remains present. 3.5 million stellar warriors and 1 million logistics personnel are all accounted for. Yet, their faces bear a newfound gravitas, a touch of weariness, and an indescribable anticipation compared to 5 years ago. Within the bridge of the Conqueror 001, the duty officer of the information reconnaissance team stares blankly at the holographic screen before him, displaying real-time data from the gravitational sensing system. For 5 years, this void has remained unchanged. He yawns and takes a sip of water. Suddenly, a red light point flickers in one corner of the holographic screen. His hand halts abruptly, nearly causing the cup to slip from his grasp. What could that be? He fixates on the light point, rapidly zooming in. Speed, approximately 0.5 times the speed of light. Quantity, incalculable. Team leader. His voice trembles slightly. You must come and see this. The reconnaissance team leader strides over. His eyes locked on the light point for 3 seconds. Then, his expression shifts dramatically. He inhales deeply, swiftly calling up additional data, gravitational waveforms, electromagnetic spectra, variations in spatial curvature. All the data converges to a singular conclusion. Ahead lies a barrier composed of numerous high-velocity objects. These objects are hurtling towards them at 0.5 times the speed of light. Immediately report to the bridge command team. The leader's voice takes on an unprecedented gravity, an anomaly detected. Suspected, he pauses, articulating the judgment that sends a chill through everyone's hearts. Suspected defense installations of the Sarantian civilization. On the holographic screen, the red light point grows increasingly radiant. Chapter 228. The Yanhuang civilization 5 years hence in the solar system, at the heart of the Pacific Ocean. 5 years prior, this was merely an expanse of open water. Now, it stands as the vast Yanhuang continent, stretching for thousands of kilometers. Viewed from space, this continent resembles a colossal emerald, nestled in the azure center of the Pacific. 5 million square kilometers of land have been meticulously planned into distinct zones. At its core lies the administrative and cultural center, surrounded by residential areas, industrial zones, research sectors, and military districts. Every river, every mountain, every forest has been designed and constructed according to standards befitting a millennium-long vision. Far from the Yanhuang continent, 3 equally immense islands are arranged in a triangular formation: Agricultural Island, Bliss Island, and Science and Education Island. Each island spans an area of 1 million square kilometers. 5 years ago, they encompassed merely 100,000 square kilometers. Following 5 years of relentless expansion, the area of each island has now multiplied tenfold, with functional zoning becoming increasingly refined. The total land area of the Yanhuang civilization has reached 8 million square kilometers, surpassing the majority of nations on Earth. Furthermore, this is merely the inception. Agricultural Island, when viewed from above, reveals an endless expanse of verdant greenery. 1 million square kilometers of land has been subdivided into countless gigantic farms. Each farm employs a fully enclosed, vertical cultivation model, not traditional farmland, but towering planting edifices of numerous stories. Sunlight, unnecessary. Soil, also redundant. Here, artificial lighting and nutrient solutions are utilized. Within each cultivation edifice, LED-simulated sunlight cascades from the dome, illuminating rows of planting racks where vegetables, grains, and fruits are stacked upon one another, extending to the horizon. Rice can yield 12 harvests in a year. Wheat can produce 15 harvests annually. Vegetables can grow from seed to harvest in a mere 20 days. As for yield, one set of data suffices to illustrate the magnitude. 5 years ago, when Agricultural Island was only 100,000 square kilometers, it was already capable of sustaining the entire Yanhuang civilization, with a significant surplus to nourish billions. At that time, the population of the Yanhuang civilization was merely over 10 million. Now, with the area of Agricultural Island expanded tenfold and cultivation efficiency increased by at least 30%, it can effortlessly support 5 billion individuals, over 6 times the current global population. Meanwhile, the population of the Yanhuang civilization has just surpassed 100 million. Hence, the majority of Agricultural Island's production capacity currently lies dormant. Less than 10% of the cultivation edifices are operational, while the remaining 90% are preserved for future needs, ready to be activated as population demands grow. In addition to agriculture, Agricultural Island boasts an equally extensive aquaculture sector. Meat production also reaches astronomical figures. Within those colossal breeding centers, cattle, sheep, pigs, and chickens are all raised in a closed-loop system. Feed is derived from byproducts of the cultivation zones. while waste is transformed into fertilizer and energy, creating a completely self-sustaining ecological system. 5 years ago, the meat output of agricultural island was already sufficient to meet the civilization's demands with a substantial surplus. Today, that output has multiplied tenfold. However, the internal consumption within the Yanhuang civilization remains a small fraction. The majority of the meat is processed into storable food, a portion is strategically stored in underground cold storage, and some is exported through Bliss Island to various corners of the globe. After all, for most nations and regions, the agricultural products and meats of the Yanhuang civilization are among the most coveted hard currencies. Bliss Island, if agricultural island serves as the granary of the Yanhuang civilization, then Bliss Island is its treasury. 5 years ago, when Paradise Island first opened, it spanned a mere 100,000 square kilometers. Yet it attracted a throng of affluent individuals from around the globe. They exchanged various goods for Yanhuang coins, which they then used to procure items that were utterly unattainable on Earth, such as the diluted version of gene optimization serum. A single vial, priced at 5 million Yanhuang coins, could extend one's life by 150 years. As 5 years have elapsed, Paradise Island has expanded tenfold, growing from 100,000 to 1 million square kilometers. This vast expanse now boasts a multitude of hotels, casinos, entertainment venues, and service personnel. Scattered across the 1 million square kilometers are hundreds of resort areas, ranging from Japanese-style hot spring towns to North American-style gambling cities. From European-style ancient castles to Southeast Asian-style seaside villas. Every day, thousands of wealthy visitors from all corners of the world flock to the island, traveling in the anti-gravity aircraft provided by Paradise Island, which can reach speeds of Mach 10. Departing from any location on Earth, they arrive within a maximum of 2 hours. They bring with them an array of resources essential to Yanhuang civilization and any hard currency that can be exchanged for Yanhuang coins. Over the past 5 years, the wealth accumulated on Paradise Island has become incalculable, while the Yanhuang civilization has merely traded items of little value to them, such as the diluted gene optimization serum. After all, such a product is looked down upon by the citizens of Yanhuang. The complete gene optimization serum, which can grant an individual a lifespan of 30,000 years, is entirely free. The diluted version, which only allows for a lifespan of 150 years, is coveted solely by outsiders who will never have the privilege of becoming Yanhuang citizens. This constitutes a lucrative enterprise, an exceedingly profitable one. On Science and Education Island, covering 100 square kilometers, there exist 2 distinct sections, the Education Zone and the Research Zone. The Education Zone features an expanded version of Yanhuang University. 5 years ago, when Yanhuang University first commenced its enrollment, it had only a few tens of thousands of students. Now, 5 years later, it boasts over 3 million students who receive free education. The curriculum encompasses a wide array of subjects, including but not limited to language arts, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, history, geography, military theory, basics of interstellar navigation, and an introduction to space warfare, without the inclusion of English, as it holds no status within Yanhuang civilization. The sole official language is Chinese, with all educational materials, courses, and examinations conducted in this language. These students will represent the first generation of true Yanhuang descendants raised on the Yanhuang continent. From a young age, they are instilled with the knowledge that they are the most esteemed individuals in the world. They are aware that they possess a lifespan of 30,000 years, that their civilization is supreme, and that their duty is to conquer the stars and the oceans. They understand that all other people on Earth, those still using outdated currencies, burdened by mortgages, and anxious about their children's education, are an entirely different species. The purpose of their education is to ensure they never forget this truth. Chapter 229. 5 years later in the civilization of Yanhuang, the essence of education lies in instilling this fundamental understanding. Within the realm of scientific research, a more enigmatic domain unfolds. This area remains inaccessible to the public, and even the majority of Yanhuang citizens are oblivious to the nature of the research conducted therein. Only a select few are privy to the fact that beneath those low, domed structures lie the true secrets of the Yanhuang civilization. Energy research, materials science, biological studies, weaponry development, and spacecraft design, alongside the investigation of the ultimate technology, the system. Yet, the existence of the system is known solely to Qin Feng. The ability to directly convert energy into matter is a singular gift possessed only by him. The research conducted is merely a study of the system's surface manifestations, the technologies that have already been unveiled. However, this is sufficiently advanced, as these technologies afford the Yanhuang civilization a lead of several millennia over other civilizations on Earth. Over the span of 5 years, the population of the Yanhuang civilization has burgeoned from over 10 million 5 years ago to more than 100 million today. A significant portion of this growth has stemmed from immigration from the Dragon Kingdom. The criteria for immigration remain unchanged. Only ordinary citizens deemed virtuous, healthy, and with clean criminal records, verified through a memory reading device, qualify for Yanhuang citizenship. In these 5 years, more than 90 million individuals have migrated from the Dragon Kingdom, hailing from diverse regions, professions, and familial backgrounds. Yet, upon arriving on the Yanhuang continent, they have all transformed into one unified identity, Yanhuang citizens. They reside in uniformly allocated traditional-style villas, each spanning 500 square meters and accompanied by a 300 square meter garden, at no cost. Their children are enrolled in schools within the Yanhuang civilization, from kindergarten through university, all free of charge. Their parents benefit from the highest standard of healthcare, where all ailments can be treated at no expense. They themselves undergo comprehensive genetic optimization thrice, extending their lifespans to 30,000 years, also at no cost. As 5 years have elapsed, the disbelief that once accompanied their arrival has morphed into an accepted reality. They have acclimatized to this way of life, awakening each day to the sunlight streaming through their windows, observing the flora in their gardens, and gazing upon the fluttering flags at Yanhuang Square in the distance. They have grown accustomed to laboring daily, contributing their efforts to this civilization. They have embraced the routine of continual self-improvement through learning, for in this land, stagnation is not an option. They find comfort in watching their children flourish in environments they once could scarcely envision, growing up healthy and happy. Occasionally, they reminisce about their past lives, recalling the home in the Dragon Kingdom still burdened with mortgage payments, the daily grind of commuting on overcrowded subways, and the relentless cycle of tutoring sessions and examinations their children once faced. Yet, these memories feel as though they belong to a past life. At times, they think of relatives still residing in the Dragon Kingdom, siblings fretting over mortgage debts, friends and neighbors anxious about their children's education, and parents concerned about retirement. They send messages back home, sharing the joys of their new existence. Yet, more often than not, their relatives respond with envy. Due to the limited immigration quotas, not everyone can pass the screening process. Those lacking moral integrity are disqualified, as are individuals with criminal records. Furthermore, it is paramount to note that immigration slots are allocated in batches. The first cohort of 10 million has already arrived, while the second cohort of 30 million is in the process of completing their applications. The third batch of 50 million is still waiting in line, and even more individuals are poised in anticipation. Those on the waiting list gaze longingly at the photographs and videos sent back by their relatives who have already arrived, hoping fervently for the day when they too can be selected to board the transport aircraft destined for the land of Yin and Huang, thereby becoming part of this civilization and truly embodying the legacy of Yin and Huang. In addition to immigrants, the naturally born population of the Yin and Huang civilization has also surpassed 6 million. 5 years ago, Qin Feng instituted a policy to encourage childbirth. For each child born, families receive a monthly subsidy of 500 yen and Huang coins until the child reaches adulthood. For a family with 3 children, this translates to an additional income of 1,500 yen and Huang coins per month, equivalent to having an extra wage earner. Moreover, procreation is fundamentally a civic duty. The principle of encouraging larger families is enshrined in the foundational laws of the Yin and Huang civilization. Given the race's lifespan of 30,000 years, a low birth rate would render population growth impossible. Population is the bedrock of civilization. Without sufficient numbers, it cannot sustain a sizable military force. Without such a force, the conquest of distant stars and seas would remain unattainable. Thus, procreation is essential. Over the past 5 years, 6 million newborns have emerged as a testament to this policy. Upon birth, they are granted the status of Yin and Huang citizens, destined to enjoy a lifespan of 30,000 years and to be among the most esteemed individuals in the universe. As they mature and inherit the banners of their forebears, they will continue the quest to conquer even more distant galaxies, ensuring that their names are etched in the annals of the cosmos. The construction of Conqueror-class battleships has not ceased. 5 years ago, when the first fleet of 24 Conqueror-class ships embarked on their expedition, another batch of 24 was already under construction in the Kuiper Belt. Now, 5 years later, those 24 have been completed and have joined the solar system's defensive fleet. Subsequently, the third, fourth, and fifth batches have been initiated. In total, the number of Conqueror-class vessels has reached 108, numbered from Conqueror 001 to Conqueror 108. Among them, 24 are currently en route on their expedition, while the remaining 84 are strategically stationed within the solar system and its surrounding regions. These 84 interstellar warships, each measuring 50 kilometers in length, silently hover in the Kuiper Belt, the asteroid belt, and Earth's orbit, ever prepared to confront any potential threats. Thus far, no threats have materialized. After all, the fleet of the Serindia civilization, if it were to arrive, would not do so for at least a century. By that time, the Yin and Huang civilization's fleet may have already occupied their home planet. However, Qin Feng is not willing to gamble on such uncertainties. Therefore, the fleet's construction must persist. 108 vessels are merely the beginning. The next batch comprises 216 vessels. Following that, there will be 432 more. One day, the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization will swell to such a number that they themselves will lose count. At that time, the entirety of the galaxy will lie beneath their dominion. 5 years have elapsed in this manner. On the Yanhuang continent, over 100 million people are living in tranquility. On the agricultural island, the towering cultivation buildings continue their relentless operations, producing enough sustenance to nourish billions. On the Paradise Island, affluent individuals flock in droves, exchanging various goods for the gene optimization liquids, which they regard as divine. On the Science and Education Island, millions of children are engaged in learning, maturing, and evolving into the backbone of this civilization's future. In the Kuiper Belt, 84 Conqueror-class vessels silently hover, awaiting orders that remain uncertain. Meanwhile, 60 light-years away, the expedition fleet approaches its initial target, the Xenus system. There, 8,000 orbital cannons are firing nearly 10,000 projectiles per minute towards the solar system. A war is on the brink of igniting. Chapter 230, Engagement, full activation of the defense system at the moment the alarm sounded. Everyone on the bridge of the Conqueror 001 felt a chilling sensation surge from their spines to their foreheads. It was not a physical chill, but an instinctive response, an echo of the primal fear that humanity experienced on the African plains 30,000 years ago when confronted by saber-toothed tigers. The duty officer of the command group, a person who had never made a mistake during the 5-year voyage, sprang from his seat within a second of the alarm sounding. His gaze was fixed on the holographic screen. The once stable gravitational sensor image was now flashing violently in red. Red, symbolizing threat, danger, and death. Data. His voice was not loud, yet the urgency suppressed beneath his calm demeanor compelled everyone to hasten their actions. Projectile swarm. A vast number of projectiles. The leader of the intelligence reconnaissance team nearly shouted, approximately 2 light minutes away, quantity, uncountable. Speed at 0. 5 times the speed of light. Directly heading towards us. 2 light minutes. The distance light travels in 2 minutes. Projectiles traveling at 0. 5 times the speed of light will collide with the fleet in 4 minutes from the moment of detection. For minutes, 240 seconds. Entire fleet. Disengage from warp travel. The moment the command was issued, 24 Conqueror-class battleships, along with over 100 auxiliary vessels, simultaneously exited the warp bubble. The sensation was akin to a car racing down the highway suddenly slamming on the brakes. However, there was no time to dwell on such discomfort, as the incessant, piercing alarm echoed in everyone's ears, a relentless, life-threatening warning. Within the hull of the Conqueror 001, countless figures were sprinting, clad in black combat suits. They had scarcely removed them throughout the 5-year journey. At this moment, the soldiers stationed in the rest area, recreation zone, cultivation sector, and logistics service compartment are sprinting towards their respective posts at the peak speed afforded by their genetically optimized bodies. The potential of their 30,000-year lifespan surges forth in a remarkable display. In the corridors, dark figures dart like bolts of black lightning, fleeting past. The elevators are insufficient. They opt for the emergency passageways. Are the emergency corridors too slow? They leap directly from 3 stories up, landing with slightly bent knees to absorb the impact, then continue their furious dash. Within 30 seconds, the first wave of soldiers has already reached their designated positions. Within a minute, 80% of the posts are prepared. In 2 minutes, all positions are fully manned, including those soldiers who had just risen from their beds in the logistics compartment. They scarcely have time to adjust their attire. Bursting forth in their combat uniforms, 3.5 million personnel are in position within the 2 minutes following the alarm. This is the fruit of 5 years of rigorous training. This is the caliber of the Yan Huang Cultural Star Warriors. Activate the force field shields at full capacity. The voice of General Qin Zhangguan reverberates through the quantum communication system, reaching the bridge of every warship simultaneously. He is the supreme commander of the expeditionary force and one of Qin Feng's most trusted bioengineered individuals. Throughout the 5-year voyage, he seldom directly issued commands, as he trusted each ship's captain to perform their duties competently. But now, he must take personal charge, for this is not a drill, this is genuine combat. Simultaneously, 24 Conqueror-class vessels, alongside over 100 auxiliary ships, activate their force field shields. This invisible field, powered by the onboard reactors, creates a layer of warped space around the warships. Any object entering this force field will have its trajectory deflected, akin to a stone in a flowing stream diverting the water's path. However, the force field shield is not omnipotent. It can only deflect objects of a certain mass. Yet, the incoming projectiles each weigh 500 tons, traveling at 0.5 times the speed of light, each possessing kinetic energy sufficient to obliterate a city. To what extent can the force field shield deflect such projectiles? No one knows, but they will soon find out. The first wave of projectiles enters a range of 1 million kilometers, the effective firing range of the laser defense array. Laser array, engage in autonomous interception. The moment the command is given, a total of 288,000 laser turrets across the 24 Conqueror-class capital ships fire simultaneously. In the vacuum of space, lasers are invisible. Yet, everyone can witness the scene unfold on the holographic screens, as the points of light representing the incoming projectiles extinguish at a discernible pace. 1, 10, 100, 1,000. The output power of the laser turrets is 500 megawatts, sufficient to heat any metal to tens of thousands of degrees within an instant. Under such intense laser exposure, a 500-ton projectile would vaporize in mere fractions of a second. However, the challenge lies in the sheer volume of projectiles and their staggering speed. At 500% the speed of light, the interval from the moment the projectiles entered the laser range to their impact on the battleship was a mere 7 seconds. 7 seconds. The intricate process of the laser turrets, aiming, locking on, firing, re-aiming, relocking, and firing again, had to be executed countless times within that fleeting span. The ship's main computer operated at maximum capacity. Each laser turret, aided by the ship's brain, meticulously calculated the trajectory of every incoming projectile, firing at the most opportune moment. 1 projectile was obliterated, 2 were destroyed, 10 were annihilated, 100 were neutralized. Yet, more projectiles continued to surge forth. The cooling system of the laser turrets had begun to sound alarms, the relentless high-powered output causing their temperatures to soar. However, no order to cease was given. For to halt would invite the incoming projectiles to collide. The first wave of projectiles that escaped the laser's wrath entered the effective range of the force field shield. Aimed directly at the Conqueror 003, 23 projectiles struck the shield almost simultaneously. In that moment, the deflection capabilities of the force field shield were vividly displayed, as 19 of those projectiles were successfully diverted, tracing a graceful arc past the side of the battleship. Yet, for projectiles remained unaltered. It was not due to a deficiency in the shield's strength, but rather that the angles of incidence for those 4 projectiles coincided with the shield's most vulnerable zones. 4 500-ton projectiles hurtled toward the Conqueror 003 at 500% the speed of light. Close-in weapons. Full power. The commander's roar on the bridge of the Conqueror 003 nearly tore his throat asunder. The close-in defense systems, including small electromagnetic cannons, rapid-fire laser turrets, and dense interception arrays, unleashed their fury. One projectile was struck, exploding midair. Two more were hit, disintegrating into countless fragments. Chapter 231. Instant Death, 23,741 souls lost. Yet, two projectiles pierced through all defenses, heading straight for the hull. The first collided with the bow of the Conqueror 003, where the hangar for the aircraft was located. At the moment of impact, the entire battleship shuddered violently. The armor at the bow, composed of a new composite material 1,200 times stronger than titanium alloy, crumbled like paper before the onslaught of a 500-ton projectile traveling at 500% the speed of light. The projectile penetrated the outer armor, breached the middle structure, and pierced the inner bulkheads, drilling deep into the heart of the vessel. Everything in its path, metal, equipment, air, and human bodies, was instantaneously vaporized. Ultimately, it breached the entire battleship, emerging from the opposite side and continuing its relentless flight. The bow of the Conqueror 003 bore a gaping hole approximately 10 meters in diameter. Everything surrounding that breach had vanished, replaced by blinding flames, surging air, and countless tiny particles of metal rapidly cooling in the vacuum of space. And then there were the people, those soldiers on duty in the hangar, the technicians servicing the aircraft, and the crew members who happened to pass through that area. They ceased to exist. In the fleeting moment of being struck by the projectile, they vanished, scarcely able to emit a cry of despair. The second projectile collided with the midsection of the vessel. This time, the angle was slightly off. The projectile did not penetrate directly, but grazed the hull at a shallow angle. Yet, that grazing was equally lethal. It tore a gaping 5-kilometer-long fissure along the side of the ship. At the breach, all compartments were laid bare to the void of space. The air within those compartments was instantly siphoned away. The soldiers clad in combat suits were swept away by the furious currents, hurtling through the rift into the boundless abyss. The logistics personnel, unprotected by combat suits, were expelled from the warship, their bodies shredded in an instant by the disparity of pressure inside and outside. It was not mere tearing. It was an explosion, an internal detonation. In the vacuum, the human body holds an internal pressure of approximately 1 atmosphere. When this pressure loses its equilibrium with the external environment, it results in a catastrophic rupture. Lungs, blood vessels, and all gas-filled organs swell, tear, and explode. In that moment of being ejected from the ship, those bodies transformed into a mist of blood. Subsequently, the blood mist was rapidly cooled by the frigid expanse of space, crystallizing into countless minute ice particles that glimmered with an eerie radiance beneath the starlight. On the bridge of the Conqueror 003, the commander fixed his gaze intently on the holographic screen displaying the crimson life signals. One by one, those signals extinguished, not gradually dimming, but vanishing instantaneously. Hundreds, thousands, still they continued to disappear. Seal the airtight compartments. Close the airtight compartments. He nearly shouted. The warship's mainframe responded with swiftness far surpassing that of any human. The moment the breach appeared, the mainframe initiated the automatic closure of all airtight doors in the vicinity of the rupture. 1 door, 2 doors, 10 doors, 100 doors. Those heavy alloy doors descended in milliseconds, isolating the breached area from the rest of the vessel. At last, the region around the breach was completely sealed off. The flow of air ceased. More life signals were preserved, yet those that had already vanished would never flicker to life again. The Conqueror 009 also came under assault. A projectile, from a nearly impossible angle, penetrated both the force field shield and the laser array's dual defenses, hurtling towards the side of the warship. The close-in defense cannons unleashed their full might. However, the trajectory of the projectile was too cunning. At the last moment, it evaded interception by the defense cannons. Then, at 0.5 times the speed of light, it struck the side of the warship. The angle was slight, not a direct impact, but a glancing blow. Yet, that grazing was equally fatal. The projectile carved a 5-kilometer-long gash across the hull. Not a penetration, but a tearing, as though an invisible blade had ruthlessly sliced through the vessel. At the breach, the compartments were exposed to the void. Air was lost in an instant. Those soldiers occupying various posts within the compartments were swept away by the violent currents, propelled into the emptiness, clad in their combat suits. The combat suits enable survival in the vacuum for a limited duration. Equipped with a 72-hour life support system capable of withstanding the frigid temperatures of space and supplying breathable oxygen. Yet, in that moment, they had no time to react. They were hurled from the warship, soaring into the vast, inky darkness. Before them loomed the rapidly retreating Conqueror 009, while behind lay the void of the starry sky. Some attempted to adjust their orientation, striving to activate the microthrusters on their suits in a bid to return to the vessel. But the distance was insurmountable. The warship advanced at cruising speed, and they had been propelled several kilometers away. Moreover, the projectiles continued their relentless assault. Those warriors suspended in the void. If struck by another projectile, no one dared to contemplate the outcome. The situation for the logistic support vessels was even more dire. The supply ships, medical vessels, transport crafts, and logistical support ships lacked the formidable force field shields of the Conqueror class, and were equipped with far fewer laser turrets and close defense weapons. Their defensive capabilities were significantly inferior. As the first wave of projectiles approached, the commander of the auxiliary fleet sensed impending doom. Yet all he could do was order every auxiliary vessel to activate their closed defense systems to the fullest and converge towards the main fleet, seeking refuge under its protective force field. But there were too many projectiles. They were too swift. In the 37th second of the assault, 2 auxiliary vessels, designated Logistics 015 and Medical 008, were simultaneously struck. Logistics 015, a colossal supply ship approximately 15 kilometers in length, was laden with enough provisions to sustain the entire fleet for half a year. Medical 008, a 10-kilometer-long medical vessel, housed over 20,000 soldiers and medical personnel. Each was struck by a single projectile, but one was sufficient. At 500 tons and traveling at 0.5 times the speed of light, the impact of such a projectile against a civilian standard auxiliary vessel yielded but one outcome: instant vaporization. Not merely struck, nor penetrated, nor damaged, it was vaporized. The entire ship, along with all souls aboard, was transformed into plasma in the instant of collision. Subsequently, this plasma rapidly cooled in the frigid expanse of space, coalescing into a visible cloud of metallic vapor that expanded endlessly. Within that cloud resided 23,741 individuals, including over 18,000 soldiers and more than 4,000 logistical personnel. They experienced no suffering, for in the fleeting moment that pain might have reached them, they had already ceased to exist. Chapter 232, 26,000 souls on the bridge of the Conqueror 001, Qin Zhongguan's face turned ashen. On the holographic screen, 2 points representing Allied forces dimmed rapidly before vanishing entirely. Logistics 015, Medical 008, gone, along with the 23,741 souls aboard. His fists clenched tightly. Yet, there was no time for grief, for the projectiles continued their relentless onslaught. All fleet, full defensive maneuvers. His voice echoed through the quantum communication system. At all costs, we must intercept them. Simultaneously, his gaze fell upon another direction on the holographic screen, the very trajectory from which all projectiles were approaching. Intelligence reconnaissance team, ascertain their origin. In front of the holographic display, the entire team was working feverishly. The gravitational sensing system was operating at full capacity, while the electromagnetic spectrum scan encompassed all frequency bands. The neutrino detectors were fully activated, and real-time monitoring of spatial curvature variations was in effect. All data converged towards the ship's mainframe. Then, the mainframe provided an answer. The direction of the incoming projectiles was locked. Coordinates, Xenu star system. Distance, approximately 2 light-years. The Xenu star system? The leader of the intelligence reconnaissance team fixed his gaze on the coordinates, a frown creasing his brow. It marked the outer boundary of the Theranthia civilization. His deputy interjected. It's about 10 light-years from their home planet. The leader remained silent for a moment. Then a cold smirk crept across his lips. Ah. So they have been waiting for us here. Immediately report to the commander-in-chief. The projectiles originate from the Xenu star system. Within 30 seconds. The report from the intelligence reconnaissance team reached General Qin Zhan's ears, confirming the distance of approximately 2 light-years. Based on the density and distribution of the projectiles, it was surmised that the adversary had deployed a multitude of orbital cannons on the periphery of the Xenu star system, persistently launching projectiles in our direction. General Qin Zhan stared at the star map, fixated on the illuminated point denoting Xenu, and remained silent for 3 seconds. After this brief interlude, he issued the order for counterattack. All Conqueror-class vessels, prepare electromagnetic railguns. Target, Xenu star system. Ammunition type, standard projectiles. Rate of fire, maximum power. Fire. 24 Conqueror-class capital ships commenced charging simultaneously. Each vessel was equipped with 36 electromagnetic railguns, totaling 864 across the fleet. The concept of 864 railguns firing at once. It represented a force capable of rending planets asunder. It embodied the might sufficient to obliterate a star system. It was the first true demonstration of power that the Yanhuang civilization would showcase to the Theranthia civilization. 864 projectiles erupted simultaneously from the barrels. Each projectile weighed 10,000 tons, achieving an exit velocity of 0.8 times the speed of light. Each bore the kinetic energy capable of annihilating an entire continent. They traced 864 faint trails through the void, hurtling towards the Xenu star system, 2 light-years away. At a velocity of 0.8 times the speed of light. They would take 2.5 years to arrive. In 2.5 years, they would reach the star system equipped with 8,000 orbital cannons. In 2.5 years, they would impart a lesson to the Theranthians. When you launch projectiles at the descendants of Yanhuang, you had better pray they do not retaliate. For once they do retaliate, there will be no second chances. Following the issuance of the counterattack order, General Qin Zhan did not pause. Ship 009, report damage status. In the command bridge of Conqueror 009. The commander's voice was somewhat hoarse. The hull's starboard side was grazed by a projectile, resulting in a fissure approximately 5 kilometers long. The airtight compartments in the breach area have all been sealed, and isolation is complete. Preliminary statistics indicate casualties. He paused. 2,371 fatalities. Among them were 1,842 warriors and 529 logistical personnel. Additionally, approximately 300 soldiers were ejected into the void during a turbulence. Currently adrift in space, we have dispatched rescue vessels and are exerting every effort in the search and recovery operation. Qin Zhongguan remained silent for a moment, then stated resolutely, bring them back. Not a single one must be lost. Understood. Near the Conqueror 009, over 20 small rescue vessels were navigating through the cosmos. Their mission was to locate the warriors who had been cast into the abyss and return them safely. Clad in combat suits, these soldiers could survive in the vacuum for 72 hours. However, the challenge lay in the fact that they were propelled outward at varying speeds and directions, now scattered across a radius of several hundred kilometers. Furthermore, projectiles continued to rain down. The pilots of the rescue vessels, while evading incoming fire, scoured the holographic screens for faint life signals. Found one. Coordinates received. I'm on it. One rescue vessel altered its course and sped towards the designated location. Soon, The pilot spotted the target, a figure clad in a black combat suit, gently drifting in the void. The rescue vessel approached, opened its hatch, and extended a mechanical arm to gently retrieve the figure, drawing them inside. The hatch closed, and the cabin pressure normalized. The pilot removed their helmet and turned to look back. It was a young warrior, appearing no older than 25 or 26. His combat suit was intact, vital signs stable. Yet his eyes were tightly shut, and his complexion pale. The pilot gently tapped his face. "Hey, wake up!" The soldier's eyelids fluttered, gradually opening. He beheld the interior of the rescue vessel, the pilot's face, and the green signal light indicating salvation. With a parched voice, he whispered, "Am I still alive?" The pilot smiled reassuringly. "You're alive." "Live well." The soldier paused for a moment, then suddenly recalled something, sitting up abruptly. "What about my comrades? I had several beside me." The pilot fell silent for a moment before softly replying, "We will continue searching." The soldier, understanding the gravity of the situation from the pilot's expression, closed his eyes and uttered no further words. The rescue operation persisted for 6 arduous hours. After this duration, all recoverable soldiers had been brought back, totaling 273. 67 remained unaccounted for. They may have been struck by projectiles, drifted further into the void, or their fates were simply unknown. Yet, everyone comprehended that they would not return. The list of the fallen grew by 67 names, along with the 23,741 individuals aboard Logistics 015 and Medical 008, and over 1,800 who were vaporized by direct impact on Conqueror 009. This day marked the loss of over 26,000 souls. 26,000. In 5 years of voyages, the expeditionary force had suffered no losses. Yet on this day, 26,000 would eternally remain in this starry expanse. Within the command bridge of Conqueror 001, Qin Zhongguan stood before the holographic star map, motionless for an extended period. Behind him, the entire command group on the bridge remained enveloped in silence. Chapter 233. What does a 20-fold disparity imply? No one uttered a word, for none knew what might be said. 26,000 souls. It transcended mere numbers. It represented 26,000 families, 26,000 children of parents, and 26,000 parents of children. It encompassed 26,000 individuals who had once trained, dined, and conversed together. At long last, Qin Zhongguan spoke. His voice was soft. Yet each word struck the hearts of all present like a nail. Record. In the 4,729th year of the Yellow Emperor's era, during the 11th month of the 4th year of the expedition, the fleet encountered an enemy orbital cannon assault as they approached the Xenu star system. A total of 26,014 lives were lost, including 21,322 soldiers of the expeditionary force and 4,692 logistical personnel. The list of the fallen has been inscribed in the Civilizational Martyrs Register. Their names shall be eternally etched upon the Martyrs Wall in Yanhuang Square. Their families shall be provided for by the civilization until the end of their days. Qin Zhongguan paused. They are the first martyrs of the Yanhuang civilization to sacrifice themselves in interstellar war. They have imparted to us the grim reality that war has indeed arrived. That battle endured for a full 72 hours. Throughout these 72 hours, the expeditionary fleet navigated perilously through a hail of projectiles. Laser turrets operated on the brink of overheating, force field shields strained under excessive load, and the close-in defense systems exhausted their last munitions in countless interceptions. After 72 hours, the density of the projectiles finally began to wane, as the fleet had traversed the most densely packed area of fire. During those 72 hours, 3 auxiliary vessels sustained damage, 2 severely, and 1 was utterly obliterated. Over 8,000 souls were left behind in this star region forever. At last, after 72 hours, the expeditionary fleet finally emerged from the threat of the barrage. Yet they understood that this was merely the beginning. Ahead lay a journey of 2 light years. In 2.5 years, their retaliatory projectiles would reach the Xenu star system. But what awaited them thereafter? Beyond the Xenu star system lay another 10 light years. 10 light years away was the home planet of the Sarandia civilization. There, even more battles awaited them. On the bridge of Conqueror 001, Qin Zhongguan stared silently at the holographic star map, fixated on the pinpoint marked Xenu, for an extended moment. Then, he issued the final command for this star region. All fleet, accelerate forward. Destination, Xenu star system. 24 Conqueror-class capital ships, along with nearly 100 remaining auxiliary vessels, reignited their warp engines, advancing towards the Xenu star system 2 light years away. Behind them lay the spirits of over 20,000 fallen. Before them stood unknown enemies and an uncharted battlefield. Yet their march did not falter, nor would it ever cease. On the central continent of the Sarandia home planet, within the Grand Assembly Hall, an emergency meeting was convened 72 hours ago, precisely at the moment when the gravitational sensor array on the periphery of the Xenu star system detected an anomaly. At this moment, 7 elders sat around the circular council table, accompanied by 42 high-ranking officials who had been urgently summoned from various colonial star systems. A holographic star map floated at the center of the chamber, indicating the direction of the Xenu star system, which was now pulsating with a conspicuous red light. The voice of the intelligence elder reverberated through the chamber. 72 hours ago, the gravitational sensor array at the outer rim of the Xenu star system detected large-scale fluctuations from a warp engine. The magnitude, intensity, and characteristics of these fluctuations correspond exactly with the fleet reported by the Yanhuang civilization. According to the detection data, this fleet comprised approximately 120 large vessels, of which around 24 were capital ships, supplemented by nearly 100 auxiliary craft. He paused, his voice tinged with a gravity that even he struggled to accept. They traversed the barges at a velocity of 10 times the speed of light. A profound silence enveloped the chamber. The phrase 10 times the speed of light weighed heavily upon each individual present, as if 4 colossal stones pressed down on their hearts. After a lengthy silence, the technology elder finally spoke. Her voice was hoarse, as if she had aged a decade overnight. 10 times the speed of light is impossible. Our scientists have studied propulsion technology for over 3,000 years. From the initial sublight, speeds to 0, 2 times the speed of light, and then to 0, 5 times the speed of light. Each breakthrough required centuries of accumulation. In 3 millennia, we have managed to increase our speed by less than threefold. Yet they, she gestured towards the red light on the star map, departed from the solar system and have, at most, 5 years to cover 50 light years. This speed is at least 10 times the speed of light. 10 times the speed of light is 20 times our current capability. The term 20 times echoed throughout the chamber, striking each heart like a relentless hammer. A young official seated in the corner could no longer contain himself. Could it be a miscalculation? Perhaps it's some natural phenomenon? Maybe our equipment is malfunctioning? The intelligence elder shook his head. The detection equipment from the Xenu side is our most advanced model. Moreover, during the barrage that was traversed, we had 8,000 orbital cannons continuously firing. The data regarding those projectiles being intercepted, destroyed, or deflected aligns perfectly with the movement trajectory of the Yanwang fleet. It is not a miscalculation. They are indeed here. They are capable of traveling at 10 times the speed of light. The young official opened his mouth but could utter no further words. Finally, the chief elder spoke. His voice remained calm. Yet beneath that calmness lay a palpable weight that could be felt by all. Where's their fleet now? The intelligence elder retrieved new data. After crossing the barrage, their warp engines reactivated, and then he paused momentarily. They vanished. Vanished? Yes. At 10 times the speed of light, our existing detection methods cannot track them. They may currently be advancing towards the Xenu star system, or perhaps they have turned in another direction. It is also possible that the gaze of the intelligence elder has fallen upon another point of light on the star chart. They might be heading towards our home planet. Solantia, located 10 light years from the Xenu star system, traveling at 10 times the speed of light would require merely a year. A year. The atmosphere in the council chamber grew increasingly grave. A governor from a border star system, Ruifeng, who had once ardently advocated for the expedition, now wore a pallid expression. They need only a year to reach our home planet from Xenu. Meanwhile, our fastest fleet requires 20 years to traverse from our home to Xenu. The disparity in speed is 20-fold. He left his statement unfinished. Yet the implication was understood by all. What does this 20-fold disparity in speed signify? Chapter 234. Each star system fights alone. It signifies that if the Yanwang civilization fleet is indeed making a beeline for our home planet, we would have no time to react. It implies that should they choose to assault any of our colonial star systems, the support fleets of the Serlantia civilization would forever be left trailing in their wake. It denotes that in this war, the Serlantia civilization possesses no capability for maneuverable combat. None whatsoever. The voice of the technology elder shattered the silence. There is one more matter. All eyes turned towards her. According to data from Xenu, the Yanwang civilization fleet retaliated while traversing the barrage. Retaliated? Yes. Simultaneously with their passage through the barrage. Their capital ships, those colossal vessels approximately 50 kilometers in length, launched a substantial number of projectiles towards the Xenu star system. The count was around 860. The mass of the projectiles, estimated from gravitational wave fluctuations, was at least 10,000 tons. They traveled at 8 times the speed of light. Once again, the council chamber fell into a profound silence. 860 projectiles, 10,000 tons, 8 times the speed of light. Each figure struck like a heavy fist against the chest of every individual present. After a prolonged pause, an aged voice broke forth. 8 times the speed of light surpasses our 5 by such a margin, and the mass of the projectiles is 20 times greater than ours. It was the voice of the historical elder. His temples bore deep lines, nearly obscuring the original hue of his skin, yet at this moment, those eyes, which had witnessed 3 millennia, were filled with unmistakable astonishment. When will they arrive? The technology elder retrieved the calculated data from the launch point. They are approximately 2 light years away from the Xenu star system, at a speed of 8 times that of light. They are expected to arrive in 2.5 years. 2.5 years. No one in the council chamber uttered a word. In 2.5 years, those 860 projectiles, each weighing 10,000 tons, would strike the Xenu star system. What does the Xenu star system possess? 8,000 orbital cannons, 200 million inhabitants, countless defensive constructions under development, and each projectile is sufficient to obliterate a city. Over 800 projectiles could reduce the entire Xenu star system to ruins. At last, the chief elder spoke. Are the Xenu authorities aware of this news? The intelligence elder nodded. They have been informed. Governor Jiayan is organizing evacuations. Evacuations? Ruifeng scoffed. Evacuate to where? The Xenu star system comprises merely 3 planets, 2 of which are uninhabitable, leaving one to accommodate a staggering 200 million inhabitants. Where can they evacuate? No one ventured a response. For the answer was painfully evident. There was nowhere to flee. A mere 2 light years away, a projectile traveling at 8 times the speed of light approached menacingly. The Xenu star system could only brace itself for impact. Could they withstand it? With 8,000 orbital cannons, each firing 8,000 projectiles per minute to intercept over 800 incoming enemy projectiles, theoretically, it was conceivable. However, this assumption held only under conditions of equal projectile numbers. The enemy's projectiles, traveling at 8 times the speed of light, surpassed their own by a staggering 60%. The difficulty of interception had increased exponentially. The chief technologist spoke softly. We have conducted simulations regarding Xenu's interception capabilities. Under optimal conditions, we might intercept approximately 30% of the incoming projectiles. She left the remaining 70% unspoken, but all present understood the grim implication. Over 600 projectiles, each weighing 10,000 tons, would rain down upon the Xenu star system, obliterating it from existence. The chief elder remained silent for an extended period before posing a question that lingered on everyone's lips. Yet none dared to voice. What shall we do? The council chamber succumbed to silence once more. What could be done? They could not fight. They were outmatched. They could not pursue. They were outpaced. They could not flee. Escape was impossible. What other options remained? It was Ruifeng who first broke the silence. His voice was deep, yet each word resonated like a nail driven into the hearts of all present. Is there a possibility for negotiation? Negotiation, a term that had never before graced the annals of the Surlandia civilization in such a manner. For 30,000 years, it had always been others pleading for negotiations. Never had they sought to negotiate with anyone. But now negotiation? Another council member scoffed. What grounds do we have for negotiation? Our fleet is 20 times slower than theirs. Our weaponry is outdated. Our technology pales in comparison. What leverage do we possess at the negotiation table? At the very least, Ruifeng countered. We still command dozens of star systems and a population of 3 billion. Should they choose to engage us, even if they prevail, it would come at a tremendous cost. Perhaps they would be amenable to a dignified peace? A dignified peace? The historian elder shook his head. Ruifeng, you are overly naive. Do you believe a civilization that traversed 50 light years in 5 years would care for our paltry population? Do you think a civilization wielding technology that allows for 10-fold light speed travel would regard us, a primitive race barely capable of crawling at 5 times the speed of light, with any respect? Do you think they journeyed 60 light years to engage in negotiations with us? Ruifeng opened his mouth but found himself at a loss for words, for the historian elder spoke a painful truth. If they were the Yanhuang civilization, if they possessed 10-fold light speed technology, if they crossed 60 light years to confront a civilization far more primitive than themselves, would they negotiate? No, they would strike directly, forcing their adversaries to kneel, compelling them to submit, ensuring that they would never again dare to raise their heads. The chief technologist spoke gently. We still have one path left. All eyes turned toward her. In various galaxies, each stands alone in battle. She summoned the star map. Pointing at the colonial star systems scattered over dozens of light years, our velocity is insufficient for mutual support. The fleet of the Yanhuang civilization moves with such swiftness that they can obliterate any target before our reinforcements arrive. Thus, we cannot rely on external aid. Each galaxy must fend for itself. Like Xenu, we shall deploy orbital cannons on a grand scale at the peripheries of each galaxy. Construct as many as possible. Fire as many as feasible. Let every advance of their fleet exact a toll. If they seek to assault our home world, let them exhaust themselves galaxy by galaxy on the path to it. Deplete their ammunition, drain their energy, or down their patience. Perhaps, she paused. Uncertainty tinged her voice. Perhaps in the end, they may come to realize that the cost of their assault is too high, and choose negotiation instead. Once more, silence enveloped the council chamber. Is this truly their course of action? To retreat into a shell and await the enemy's gnawing? If they cannot break through, will the enemy simply depart? And what if the enemy can indeed penetrate, devouring their defenses galaxy by galaxy? What will remain for them then? Chapter 235. The threat of 97 billion orbital projectiles. The chief elder's gaze slowly traversed each member of the council. Then he spoke. The suggestion of the tech elder is our only recourse at present. Without support, we must rely solely on ourselves. From this moment forward, every galaxy shall endeavor to construct a robust orbital cannon defense system. Build as much as can be built, fire as much as can be fired. Let the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization confront a barrage upon reaching each galaxy. Simultaneously, his gaze fell upon the tech elder. The advancement of technological research must persist without pause. Even if the progress is minuscule, even if it requires centuries, it must continue. For only by matching their speed can we hope to emerge from our shell. The tech elder nodded in understanding. The chief elder then turned his attention to the intelligence elder. Continue monitoring the movements of the Yanhuang civilization's fleet. Where do they head next? What is their target? Has their speed changed? All information must be communicated to every galaxy at the earliest opportunity. The intelligence elder nodded in affirmation. Lastly, the chief elder's gaze rested on the luminous point indicating the Xenu system. The Xenu have conveyed to us to hold firm. When that barrage descends in 2.5 years, they shall be the first warriors of the Surlandia civilization to confront the wrath of Yanhuang. Their sacrifice shall not be forgotten. In the council chamber, a profound silence descended upon all. Sacrifice. That word had once felt so distant. For 30,000 years, the Surlandia civilization had endured civil wars, internal rebellions, and countless challenges. Yet they had never before faced an adversary so utterly insurmountable. An enemy whose speed is 20 times their own. An enemy armed with far superior weaponry. An enemy that traverses 60 light years to strike at their doorstep. Now, their only course of action is to retract their heads and await the enemy's strike, bracing for sacrifice. Following the conclusion of the meeting, the news disseminated through the quantum communication system, reaching every colonial star system of the Surlandia civilization. In the Xenu's system, the steadfast governor was observing the distant, fully operational orbital cannons, 8,000 in total. Over the past 5 years, they had constructed 8,000 cannons, unleashing nearly 10,000 projectiles per minute towards the solar system. It was only now that he learned the extent of the damage inflicted upon the enemy by those projectiles. The precise losses remained unknown, but they were undoubtedly trivial. To them, The relentless 5-year effort of the 8,000 orbital cannons, along with the tireless labor of countless engineers, yielded but a meager toll on the adversary. Moreover, the enemy's retaliatory projectiles were hurtling towards Xenus at 8 times the speed of light, set to arrive in 2.5 years. The governor gazed out at the expanse filled with orbital cannons, lost in thought for a considerable time before softly uttering, "Inform everyone to prepare for barrage interception." Simultaneously, the cannons continued their relentless fire, launching as many projectiles as possible until the very last moment. The Xenus system would not surrender. In another colonial star system, situated approximately 15 light-years from the home planet and 20 light-years from Xenus, the governor, a middle-aged Sarandian named Panshur, was inspecting a newly established orbital cannon assembly factory when he received the command from the home planet. Upon reading the directive, he let out a wry smile. Realizing that after 3 millennia of civilization, they could only resort to a defensive shell, his cautious aide inquired, "Governor, what shall we do?" Panshur remained silent for a moment, then raised his gaze towards the distant orange-red star. "What shall we do? We shall follow the orders. From this moment forth, cease all non-essential construction and allocate all resources to the orbital cannons. Build as many as we can, fire as much as we can. If the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization indeed approaches," he paused, "then let them witness that the Sarandians are not easily devoured." In yet another colonial star system, the governor here was younger and, upon receiving the command, was engaged in discussions with several engineers regarding improvements to the orbital cannons. Upon reviewing the intelligence, he murmured to himself about the 20-fold velocity disparity. The engineers exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. After a lengthy silence, the young governor lifted his head, offering a wry smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, our objective has now shifted. Previously, we studied the orbital cannons to intercept their fleet. Now," he gestured towards the holographic screen displaying the proposed enhancements, "our aim is to ensure that with each advance they make, they lose a tooth. Now, let us continue our work." On the Sarandian home planet, the meeting in the Supreme Council chamber had persisted for an entire day. All decisions had been made, and all orders issued. What remained was merely to await the outcome, awaiting the next move of the Yanhuang civilization fleet, the fate of the Xenu galaxy 2.5 years hence, and the ultimate conclusion that remains uncertain. The chief elder gazes alone at the familiar star outside, Nanu Star, an eternal beacon. For 30,000 years, it has witnessed the journey of the Sarantia civilization from savagery to enlightenment, from their home planet to the cosmos, from frailty to strength. It has borne witness to countless glories, myriad honors, and immense pride. Now, it may soon witness a decline, or perhaps annihilation. The chief elder remained silent for an extended period before softly uttering, 10 times the speed of light, 20 times the disparity. What exactly is the Yanhuang civilization? On the Yanhuang continent, the heart of civilization, Qin Feng stands by the window, observing the endless expanse of traditional Chinese architecture outside. Sunlight bathes Yanhuang Square, dances upon the high-flying flag, and graces the bustling citizens of Yanhuang. Everything appears so tranquil, so serene, so starkly different from the world 60 light-years away. Behind him, a holographic screen displays the reports relayed by the expedition fleet. The voice of the Qin War Army resonates within the conference room. 26,014 have perished, including 21,322 soldiers of the expeditionary force and 4,692 logistical personnel. The list of the fallen has been inscribed in the Civilizational Heroes Register. Additionally, according to calculations by the Intelligence Reconnaissance Team, the Xenu galaxy has launched approximately 9 billion projectiles toward the solar system over the past 5 years. Of these, roughly 300 of the total were intercepted, diverted, or destroyed by the fleet. Approximately 96,700,000,000 projectiles continue to travel towards the solar system at 0.5 times the speed of light. It is anticipated that the first batch of projectiles will enter the solar system in 100 years. Chapter 236. How should the Yanhuang civilization strike? Qin Feng does not turn. His gaze remains fixed upon the serene landscape outside. 100 years, 97 billion projectiles, 0.5 times the speed of light. Each figure weighs heavily upon the hearts of all. 100 years. Finally, Qin Feng speaks, his voice barely above a whisper. What will the solar system face in 100 years? No one responds, for the answer is too terrifying. Will the sun be struck by the 96 billion projectiles traveling at 0.5 times the speed of light? Yes, even a minuscule probability, 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 100,000, would suffice to incite a violent reaction within the sun, potentially hastening the demise of that star which has burned for 4.5 billion years. Will Earth be hit? Yes. Even a 1 in 10,000 chance is enough to shatter the entire planet into fragments. Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, all planets, all moons, all artificial celestial bodies, all havens upon which humanity relies, would face utter catastrophe. And all of this is set to unfold in a century. At last, Qin Feng turns around. His gaze swept across every individual in the conference room. Qin Weidong, Qin Wanwan, Qin Wenyuan, Qin Wenyu, Qin Wenfa, Qin Wenhan, Qin Wenhai, Qin Wentao, Qin Wenyang, and Qin Yang. Everyone was present, their expressions uniformly grave. Let us speak, Qin Feng declared as he took his seat at the head of the table. What strategy shall we employ? Qin Weidong was the first to respond. This individual, the longest-serving member of Qin Feng's biogenetic cabinet, was renowned for his calm demeanor. Yet, at this moment, a rare heaviness tinged his voice. The expedition fleet currently faces 2 choices. He projected a holographic star map, indicating the red point marked as the Xenus star system. First, we could make a direct assault on the Serlandia homeworld. Xenus lies approximately 10 light-years away, and traveling at 10 times the speed of light, we could arrive within a year. If successful, we could decisively dismantle the enemy's core command center, achieving a critical victory. However, he traced an arc on the star map with his finger, should the fleet aim directly for the homeworld. All the Surlandian colonial systems along the route may launch orbital strikes toward the homeworld. The projectiles, raining down from every direction, would target the area surrounding the homeworld. Should the fleet seek to conquer the homeworld, it would be compelled to linger for an extended period, conducting orbital bombardments, airborne assaults, and ground occupation. This could take several months, if not years. During this time frame, the projectiles, traveling at 0.5 times the speed of light, would gradually arrive, launched from the nearest colonial systems within years, and from others, within a decade or more. At that juncture, the fleet would face a relentless, indiscriminate barrage. Moreover, this onslaught would be directed from their own homeworld, from the Surlandians' very homeland. Would they resort to such measures? Qin Weidong paused, then asserted, I believe they would. With their homeworld under siege, in a fight for survival, they would disregard collateral damage, sacrifices, or mutual destruction. They would act ruthlessly if it meant inflicting harm upon their adversaries. Thus, if the fleet charged straight for the homeworld, it could easily find itself in a precarious situation, besieged on all fronts, with no refuge and no escape. He left his thought unfinished. Yet everyone comprehended the implication. At that point, the expedition fleet could face total annihilation. Qin Feng nodded, refraining from comment, and turned to the others. Proceed. Qin Wanwan spoke next. The head of the Academy of Sciences, he seldom engaged in military strategy. I concur with Weidong's assessment. His tone was steady. Although the Surlandian civilization is technologically inferior, it boasts a history spanning 30,000 years. Their strategic acumen is unlikely to be inferior to ours. They could employ a scorched earth tactic, one of mutual destruction. Moreover, he presented a set of data, based on intelligence relayed by the expedition fleet. Upon realizing our speed advantage, the Surlandian civilization is likely to adopt a defensive strategy, akin to a turtle shell tactic. The turtle shell tactic? Qin Yang interjected. Indeed. Qin Wanjun nodded, acknowledging their slow pace and inability to support one another, forcing each star system to fight independently, retreating into their shells and fortifying themselves with orbital cannons. Each star system we conquer demands a toll. The flaw in this strategy lies in its inability to halt our advance. Yet its merit lies in its potential to exhaust our strength to the utmost. Should we charge directly towards the home planet, we would be playing into their hands. The home planet is the ultimate fortress, surrounded by countless smaller fortifications launching projectiles at us. We would find ourselves caught in the crossfire, besieged from all sides. Qin Feng's gaze turned to Qin Wenyuan. Wenyuan, what is your perspective? Qin Wenyuan, head of the Executive Council, oversaw domestic affairs. I believe the risk of a direct assault on the home planet is excessively high. Should our fleet be completely annihilated, we would be left powerless in the direction of Surlandia. Moreover, upon realizing our true strength, they would undoubtedly channel all their efforts into technological advancement. A century later, when those projectiles reach the solar system, we could be confronted by a Surlandian civilization that is caught up to us. At that point, we would truly find ourselves surrounded. Qin Feng nodded, shifting his gaze to Qin Wenyuan. Wenyuan? Qin Wenyuan, head of the Foreign Affairs Institute, offered a unique perspective. If a direct assault on the home planet succeeds, and we behead their leadership, the Surlandian civilization may descend into chaos, or they may capitulate. However, it is also possible that they would retaliate with even greater ferocity, leading to disarray among the star systems, with each acting independently, yet all launching projectiles at us. In that scenario, we would not face a structured enemy, but rather a multitude of deranged foes. Conversely, if we methodically conquer their star systems one by one, gradually compressing their living space, his finger traced the star map slowly. With each star system we conquer, we eliminate one threat. With every step forward, we establish another forward base. By the time we reach the home planet, the surrounding star systems will either have surrendered or been obliterated, and there will be no one left to stab us in the back. This approach is slow, yet steady. Qin Feng fell silent for a moment, then turned to Qin Yang. Yang, what are your thoughts? Qin Yang, head of Bliss Island, typically refrained from participating in such high-level meetings. Brother, I am not versed in warfare. However, I am aware of one thing. The more than 20,000 who sacrificed themselves on Xenu. Their families now reside on the Yanhuan continent. They gaze upon the names on the hero wall, awaiting an explanation from the expedition fleet. If the fleet charges directly towards the home planet, and, heaven forbid, faces total annihilation, then those millions of soldiers would have died in vain. How can their families accept that? How can an entire civilization come to terms with it? Qin Yang's voice grew somber. I understand that sacrifice is an inevitable part of war. Yet, sacrifices must hold value. They must know that their loved ones did not die in vain, that their blood was not shed without purpose. If it is merely a gamble, a reckless attempt to hasten the end of the war by risking the entire fleet, I believe that is not worth it. Qin Wenfa, Qin Wenhan, Qin Wenhai, Qin Wentao, and Qin Wenyang each expressed their opinions. The consensus was clear. A direct assault on the home planet posed an insurmountable risk and was thus inadvisable. A steady and methodical approach, dismantling challenges one by one, was the prudent course of action. Upon absorbing the opinions of those present, Qin Feng nodded in agreement. Then it is settled. He rose and approached the holographic star map, pointing to the crimson dot marking the Xenu star system. The first destination for the expedition fleet will be Xenu. However, this endeavor entails more than mere conquest. His gaze swept over the assembly. We shall utilize Xenu as a training ground. Training ground? Qin Weidong raised an eyebrow. Indeed, Qin Feng affirmed. Our fleet has undergone 5 years of training and countless drills, yet we have never engaged in genuine combat. The Xenu star system. being on the periphery of the Sarandian civilization, possesses limited defensive capabilities and lacks external support. It serves as the ideal venue for our exercises. We aim to transform the expedition fleet from mere training to actual warfare within the Xenu star system. His finger traced the star map slowly, from the strikes and evasions of outer orbital cannons to the struggles for control within the system. From the orbital airdrops on habitable planets to tactical coordination in ground combat, every facet must be practiced. We shall employ real combat scenarios, and the blood of our adversaries will be our training medium. Qin Wanwan pondered aloud. This approach may prolong the conflict in the Xenu star system. Duration is of no concern, Qin Feng replied, shaking his head. What we must avoid is haste. We have ample time. Our objective is to ensure that once we conclude our operations in Xenu, our fleet emerges as a formidable force, capable of engaging in and winning battles. Qin Wenyuan suddenly inquired, what about the subsequent fleets? Should we dispatch them? Qin Feng paused for a moment in contemplation before nodding. Yes, we shall deploy them. How many? 72 Conqueror-class vessels. In the conference room, a moment of astonished silence ensued. 72? Combined with the original 24 vessels of the expedition fleet, that totals 96. Might this be excessive? Qin Wenhans could not restrain his question. Qin Feng shook his head. Not excessive at all. He brought up the star map, indicating the territories of the Sarandian civilization. This civilization encompasses dozens of colonial star systems and over 3 billion inhabitants. While their technology may be inferior, their sheer numbers are significant. With only 3.5 million expeditionary troops, we are already outnumbered for such a vast array of systems. Moreover, their tortoiseshell tactics will render each system a formidable stronghold. We require more ships, more firepower, and more troops to systematically conquer them. The 72 Conqueror-class vessels are merely the first wave of reinforcements. Should they prove insufficient, further deployments will follow. Qin Weidong furrowed his brow. What about the defenses of the solar system? We currently possess 84 Conqueror-class vessels. If we withdraw 72, only 12 will remain. Qin Feng smiled. The solar system does not presently require such a robust defense. The fleet of the Sarandian civilization will not arrive for at least a century. By then, our expedition fleet will have long returned, or additional reinforcements will have been constructed. As for the incoming projectiles, his gaze sharpened. We shall address matters a century hence when the time comes. A century is ample time for us to devise strategies to intercept them all. Now, the foremost priority is to win the imminent war. Qin Weidong paused momentarily before nodding. Understood. When will the formation of the subsequent fleet commence? Immediately, Qin Feng replied. The shipyard at Kuiper is operating at full capacity. 72 Conqueror-class vessels have set sail, and the Gap battleships will be completed within 2 years. Auxiliary ships will be constructed concurrently. The second expedition fleet is ready to depart. 60 light years will be traversed in 6 years. By then, the first expedition fleet should have secured Xenu and be advancing to the next destination. Qin Wenyuan suddenly inquired, what about the command authority of the expedition fleet? Will it be too much pressure for Qin Zhangjuan to command 96 Conqueror-class vessels alone? Qin Feng pondered for a moment. There is no issue with Zhangjuan's command capabilities. However, for prudence's sake, we should dispatch a deputy commander when the subsequent fleet sets out. Their collaboration will ensure greater stability. Who shall it be? Qin Feng's gaze fell upon Qin Weidong. Weidong, it will be you. Qin Weidong was taken aback. Me? Indeed, Qin Feng affirmed with a nod. You are the prime minister. Your qualifications and abilities are unquestionable. With you, Zhangjuan can be at ease, and I can too. Qin Weidong remained silent for a moment, then stood up, solemnly nodding. Understood. The meeting lasted an entire day. By evening, all decisions had been made, and all orders had been issued. Qin Feng stood by the window, gazing at the sky tinged red by the setting sun. Behind him, the others gradually dispersed. Only Qin Yang remained. Brother, Qin Yang softly inquired. How long do you think this battle will last? Qin Feng was silent for a moment. I do not know. A few years? Several decades? Perhaps even centuries? Maybe longer. Qin Yang pondered for a while before asking, is it worth it? Qin Feng turned to face his brother. The twilight's glow illuminated his face, lending a profound gravity to his young features. Yang, he began, do you know why we must fight this battle? Qin Yang contemplated, because they threaten our safety? Qin Feng shook his head. Those are merely excuses. The true reason is, his gaze fell upon the boundless horizon outside the window, because the universe is vast. Because between civilizations, there exist only 2 relationships, conquest and subjugation. If we do not strike first, one day, they will come for us. 100 years from now, 200 years, 500 years from now, their fleets will appear at the edge of the solar system, and their projectiles will strike the lands of Yanhuan. At that time, our children, our grandchildren, and our descendants will bear the costs of war on our behalf. Qin Feng's voice was soft. Thus, we must fight. We must strike while they are still weak, subdue them, instill fear within them, so that they will never dare to raise their heads again. Only then can our descendants live in eternal peace. Chapter 238. Orbital Cannon Duel. 3 months have elapsed since that skirmish. For the expedition fleet traveling at 10 times the speed of light, 3 months is sufficient to cross nearly 3 light years. From the barrage zone 2 light years away to the outskirts of the Xenu galaxy, transitioning from a position of passive defense to one of active offense. At this moment, on the bridge of the Conqueror 001, Qin Zhangguan stood before the holographic star map, fixated on the increasingly proximate light point, the Xenu galaxy. Distance, 12 million kilometers. At the cruising speed of the Conqueror-class warp drive, it would require less than 5 seconds. However, Qin Zhangguan had no intention of waiting any longer. All fleets, disengage from warp speed, he commanded. At the instant the order was given, 24 Conqueror-class capital ships, accompanied by over 100 auxiliary vessels, simultaneously emerged from the warp bubble. Millions of kilometers away, an orange-red K-type star quietly burned, surrounded by 3 planets that orbited languidly along their respective paths. On the second planet, 200 million Ceranthians lived, worked, and awaited an uncertain fate. Meanwhile, on the periphery of the galaxy, facing the solar system, 8,000 orbital cannons silently hovered in the void. Each cannon was aimed at potential vectors of the expeditionary fleet, fully loaded and poised for this moment. The intelligence reconnaissance team reported. Qin Zhongguan's voice remained calm. Target confirmed. The leader of the reconnaissance team nearly shouted, numerous orbital cannon signals detected on the outskirts of the Xenu galaxy. A total of approximately 8,300 cannons. The distribution range spans about 20 million kilometers. He paused, a hint of astonishment in his voice. Additionally, 12 large vessels detected, approximately 15 kilometers in length. Suspected to be the main capital ships of the Ceranthian civilization. Positioned near the orbit of the second planet in the Xenu galaxy. 12 capital ships. Qin Zhongguan's brow slightly arched. This information was not included in the briefing. Clearly, the Ceranthian civilization was not entirely unprepared. But what of it? A 15-kilometer-long capital ship would seem like a fishing vessel in the presence of a 50-kilometer-long Conqueror-class behemoth. Orbital cannon units, prepare for action. Qin Zhongguan's voice resonated through the quantum communication system, reaching the bridges of all 24 Conqueror-class ships simultaneously. Target, enemy, orbital cannon positions. Ammunition type, standard projectiles. Rate of fire, full power. Fire. 864 electromagnetic orbital cannons discharged simultaneously. 864 projectiles, each weighing 10,000 tons, surged forth at a velocity of 0.8 times the speed of light. They traced 864 faint trails through the void, hurtling towards the Xenu galaxy, 12 million kilometers away. At a speed of 0.8 times light, the journey would take merely 50 seconds. In 50 seconds, these 864 projectiles would strike the periphery of the Xenu galaxy, targeting the positions of those 8,000 orbital cannons. Xenu Galaxy, Administrative Center. Governor Jianyan stood in the command center, observing the colossal light points that suddenly appeared on the holographic screen. 24 vessels, each 50 kilometers long, accompanied by nearly 100 auxiliary ships. This was the expeditionary fleet of the Yanhuang civilization. 3 months prior, they had traversed the barrage. 3 months later, they appeared on the periphery of the Xenu Galaxy. The fist of Jianyan was clenched tightly. Then, he beheld the luminous points soaring from the direction of the enemy ships, 864 in total, moving at an astonishing velocity of 0.8 times the speed of light. It was a counterattack from the Yanhuang civilization. Activate all orbital cannon positions for interception. His voice nearly tore through his throat as he commanded all defensive systems to operate at full power. At the moment the order was given, over 8,000 orbital cannons on the periphery of the Xenu galaxy simultaneously began to pivot, originally directed towards the solar system. They now turned to face the incoming enemy from a different angle. The adjustment of the orbital cannons required time. Even a mere few seconds could prove fatal. The first batch of Yanhuang projectiles had already entered the 1 million kilometer range, the effective range of the Xenu galaxy's laser defense system. Countless lasers erupted from the defensive platforms surrounding the orbital cannon positions, targeting the whistling projectiles. One projectile was struck, its surface vaporizing instantaneously. Yet the core continued its relentless advance. 2 projectiles were hit, beginning to disintegrate. 10 projectiles were impacted, resulting in a mid-air explosion. However, over 800 projectiles continued on their path. The interception by the orbital cannons commenced. Those cannons that had completed their rotation began to fire their own projectiles towards the incoming Yanhuang missiles. The projectiles of the Salantia civilization weighed 500 tons and traveled at 0.5 times the speed of light. 500 tons against 10,000 tons, 0.5 times the speed of light against 0.8 times the speed of light. The disparity was evident. However, quantity could compensate for this difference. With over 8,000 orbital cannons, more than 8,000 projectiles could be fired every minute. The 800 enemy projectiles, theoretically, could all be intercepted by the barrage of intercepting projectiles. Yet, the critical question remained, could those intercepting projectiles truly make contact? At a relative speed of 13 times the speed of light, the challenge of interception was unimaginably daunting. A Salantia intercepting projectile brushed past an incoming Yanhuang projectile in the void. A slight miscalculation could result in a catastrophic failure. Many intercepting projectiles failed to match the speed of the incoming missiles. Only those that approached head-on, with exceptionally precise angle calculations, stood a chance of hitting their mark. Boom. The first Yanhuang projectile was struck by an oncoming Salantia projectile. The two collided at a relative speed of 13 times the speed of light. In that instant, the energy released rivaled that of a small star's explosion. 2 clouds of metallic vapor erupted in the void, dispersing in all directions. The debris shot outward at tremendous velocity, with one fragment striking a laser defense platform, causing it to explode instantaneously. 10 fragments struck the base of another orbital cannon, fracturing it and rendering the cannon uncontrollable, causing it to rotate slowly. 100 fragments flew farther afield. Some struck asteroids, others vanished into the abyss, while some continued onward, heading deeper into the Xenu galaxy. The battlefield descended into chaos. 864 railguns unleashed 864 projectiles per minute, with a flight time of 50 seconds. The initial volley had just reached its target while the second was en route, the third was being loaded, and the fourth was charging. Over 8,000 Sarandian railguns fired more than 8,000 intercepting projectiles every minute, theoretically capable of covering all incoming rounds. Yet, warfare is seldom governed by theory. Chapter 239. The chaotic battlefield. Though the quantity of intercepting projectiles was substantial, their speed was sluggish, and their maneuverability was poor, allowing them to travel only in straight lines. Meanwhile, the projectiles from the Yanhuang civilization soared swiftly, yet they, too, could only advance in a linear trajectory. The two sides' projectiles collided in the void. Some met their fates, shattering into fragments, while others narrowly evaded one another and continued on their paths. Several were struck by lasers, their surfaces melting yet still pressing forward. Others were pierced by particle beams, sustaining structural damage, yet they too persisted in their advance. Many pierced through all defenses, heading straight for the railgun positions. Boom. A projectile from the Yanhuang civilization struck the base of a railgun. In an instant, that railgun and everything surrounding it were vaporized. Boom, boom, boom. More projectiles struck additional railguns, one after another. Those railguns, which had relentlessly fired at the solar system for the past 5 years, became mere bursts of flames in the cosmos amidst the Yanhuang civilization's retaliation. The flames erupted and swiftly cooled. Metallic vapor condensed into countless minute particles in the frigid void of space, shimmering with an eerie luminescence under the starlight. It was the glow of death. The railgun positions suffered a loss of 23. Inside the administrative center of the Xenon system, the deputy of Jinyan was frantically reporting the situation. Laser defense platforms lost 31. Particle beam arrays lost 17. Enemy projectiles continue to rain down. The next wave is expected to arrive in 30 seconds. Jinyan's complexion turned ashen. 23 seconds. In less than 3 minutes since the onset of battle, they had already lost nearly a quarter of their forces. And what of the enemy's losses? Almost negligible. The 24 capital ships remained intact, suspended 12 million kilometers away. Not a single auxiliary vessel had been struck. This was the disparity between 8 times the speed of light and 5 times the speed of light, between 10,000 tons and 500 tons, between 50 kilometers and 15 kilometers. This was the chasm separating the Yanhuang civilization from the Sarandian civilization. What of the main fleet? Jinyan inquired. The deputy retrieved another set of data. 12 capital ships are maneuvering towards the battlefield. He paused, then added, they are expected to arrive in 3 hours. 3 hours. Jinyan managed a bitter smile. By then, this battle may well be concluded. All 8,000 railguns could be utterly destroyed. But what could he say? Should he order the main fleet to charge forward now? At 5 times the speed of light. That would be tantamount to sending them to their demise. Let them continue to maneuver. The voice of Jian Yin was wearied, yet it was imperative that the enemy understood. The Sarandians would not surrender easily. On the bridge of Conqueror 001, located at the periphery of the Xenu system, Qin Zhongguan observed the holographic display, where the red dots representing enemy forces flickered out one by one, a faint smile gracing his lips. Over 8,000 orbital cannons had been deployed, yet nearly 3,000 had already been lost. Meanwhile, the expedition fleet's cannons continued to fire at a relentless rate of 864 rounds per minute. At this pace, within an hour, the remaining orbital cannons in the Xenu system would be obliterated. However, at that moment, the head of the intelligence reconnaissance team suddenly exclaimed, enemy main fleet detected. 12 vessels, maneuvering towards the battlefield at 0.5 times the speed of light. Qin Zhongguan's gaze fixed upon the 12 luminous points on the star map, each vessel spanning 15 kilometers in length. Unable to contain himself any longer, he commanded the orbital cannon crews to adjust their targets. His voice remained calm as he ordered 1/3 of the firepower to continue suppressing the enemy's orbital cannon positions, while the remaining 2/3 would be redirected towards the advancing main fleet. They would soon experience the true might of the orbital cannons. The 864 orbital cannons swiftly recalibrated their targets. Approximately 288 continued to bombard the cannon positions, while 576 turned their focus to the 12 slowly approaching Sarandian capital ships. With a velocity of 0.8 times the speed of light, 576 10,000-ton projectiles hurtled towards the 12 ships, capable of traversing 12 million kilometers in mere seconds. The capital ships, still advancing at 0.5 times the speed of light, had no chance to evade. They could only brace themselves for impact. Aboard the flagship, Eternal Light, Commander Xing Meng watched in horror as the points on the holographic display suddenly shifted direction, his pupils constricting. 576 projectiles were on a direct path toward them. Activate the fleet's maximum power energy shields. His voice resonated through the communication systems of all 12 ships. All point defense systems, engage at full capacity. The 12 vessels simultaneously activated their energy shields, an embodiment of the Sarandian civilization's most advanced technology, capable of withstanding considerable assaults. Yet, could they withstand projectiles traveling at 0.8 times the speed of light, each weighing 10,000 tons? Xing Meng was uncertain. All he knew was that their only option now was to fight with all they had. The first wave of projectiles from the Yanhuang civilization had already entered a range of 1 million kilometers. The laser defense systems aboard the Sarandian ships began to fire frantically. Beams of light shot towards the incoming projectiles. One projectile was struck, its surface vaporizing. Yet it pressed onward. 10 were hit. 2 exploded in midair, while 8 continued their relentless advance. The projectiles moved too swiftly, and the duration of the laser's exposure was insufficient to completely destroy them. The second wave of intercepting projectiles was also launched from the Sarandian vessels. These were point defense rounds, firing smaller kinetic projectiles, which similarly traveled at a speed of only 0.5 times the speed of light. Before the onslaught of projectiles traveling at 8 times the speed of light, the intercepting projectiles moving at only 5 times the speed of light were rendered nearly ineffective. A multitude of projectiles surged through all defenses, hurtling straight toward the Sarandian warship. Boom. The first projectile struck the flank of the Eternal Light. The 15-kilometer-long vessel trembled violently. The energy shield reached its limit upon impact, subsequently collapsing. The projectile pierced through the shield and struck the hull. With a mass of 10,000 tons and kinetic energy at 8 times the speed of light, the impact unleashed temperatures rivaling that of a stellar core. The hull's armor, a composite alloy that the Sarandian civilization took great pride in, was instantaneously vaporized. The projectile continued its relentless penetration, vaporizing everything in its path, compartments, equipment, and personnel alike. It exited the opposite side of the warship, continuing its trajectory. A breach approximately 50 meters in diameter appeared on the hull of the Eternal Light. Everything surrounding that breach vanished, replaced by blinding flames, rushing air, and countless tiny particles of rapidly cooling vaporized metal floating in space. And then, there were the people. Over 3,000 Sarandian crew members perished in that single impact. Boom, boom, boom. More projectiles struck other warships. The bow of one vessel was hit, severing its entire forward section. Another warship's power compartment was struck, leading to a reactor meltdown, causing the entire ship to disintegrate in an explosion. A third warship was hit by 3 projectiles in succession, splitting its hull in 2, with the wreckage drifting slowly in the void. 5 out of 12 capital ships fell in the initial barrage. The remaining 7 were all heavily damaged, and the second wave of projectiles was on its way. Chapter 240, Peripheral Combat concludes. Retreat. The entire fleet must retreat. The voice of Starfire echoed among the surviving 7 warships. He understood that continuing the fight would only lead to total annihilation. The 7 warships began to struggle to turn, attempting to flee the battlefield. Yet, at 5 times the speed of light, escape was impossible against projectiles traveling at 8 times that speed. The second wave of projectiles had arrived. Another 576. Another several seconds of flight time. Another devastating assault. Boom, boom, boom. 3 more warships were struck. One was cleaved in half, the 2 segments drifting apart in the void. Another was hit 3 times in succession, disintegrating into countless fragments. The bridge of yet another ship was struck. Commander Starfire, along with all his staff, was vaporized in an instant. The 4 surviving warships could no longer maintain formation, each fleeing in different directions. Yet the projectiles from the Yanhuang civilization relentlessly pursued them. The 3rd wave of projectiles was already en route. The 4th wave was being loaded. The 5th wave was charging. This massacre had only just begun. At the bridge of Conqueror 001 in the outer Xenu star system, Qin Zhanggu looked at the holographic screen displaying the scattering points of light. A cold smile creeping upon his lips. 12 capital ships. Now only 4 remained. Moreover, each vessel bore its wounds. Railgun units. Continue the pursuit. His voice remained composed. Spare not a single one. Simultaneously, his gaze returned to the defiant railgun positions. Railgun positions. Accelerate the elimination. By the end of today, I want the outer perimeter of the Xenu star system devoid of any operational railgun. The battle at the railgun positions was equally fierce. Over 8,000 railguns, after an hour of intense combat, had already lost more than 5,000. The remaining 3,000 continued to unleash a barrage of projectiles, most of which were directed at the expedition fleet. The close defense systems of the expedition fleet were operating at full capacity. 24 Conqueror-class ships, each equipped with tens of thousands of laser turrets, hundreds of particle beam cannons, and countless close defense weapons. The projectiles launched at them from the Saranthia were mostly destroyed by lasers before they could breach the 100,000-kilometer range. Only a scant few managed to penetrate the layers of interception and reach the vicinity of the warships. Among those that did, the majority were deflected by force field shields. The number of projectiles that struck the warships was exceedingly rare. Yet, rare does not equate to non-existent. Boom. A Saranthia projectile struck the flank of Conqueror 015. With a mass of 500 tons and kinetic energy at 0.5 times the speed of light, it posed a lethal threat to the warship. Despite being significantly less potent than the projectiles of the Yanhuang civilization, the projectile pierced through the outer armor, breached the mid-layer structure, and exploded a hole approximately 10 meters in diameter in the hull. The compartments surrounding the breach were instantly exposed to the vacuum of space. The warriors within those compartments were violently swept out of the warship, cast into the void. The airtight hatches sealed swiftly. However, 37 warriors had already been blown out. Rescue ships were dispatched promptly, ultimately retrieving 29 of the 37. 8, however, vanished into the boundless abyss. Simultaneously, the contest of space fighters raged on. The Xenu star system deployed all its space fighters, totaling around 5,000, all of the most advanced models from the Saranthia civilization. Their objective was to breach the defenses of the expedition fleet and assault the Conqueror-class capital ships that were firing projectiles. The expedition fleet, in turn, dispatched Star-class space fighters, with each Conqueror-class vessel carrying 10,000, resulting in a formidable total of 240,000. 5,000 against 240,000. A staggering disparity was evident. Yet, the Saranthian pilots charged forth, knowing that without their advance, the railgun positions would be obliterated, the main fleet would face annihilation, and the Xenu star system would lose its capacity for resistance. Thus, they had to press on, even at the cost of their lives. The first wave of Saranthian fighters entered the interception range of the starfighters. Most of the starfighter pilots were participating in real combat for the first time. However, 5 years of training ensured they remained composed under any circumstances. Lock on. Fire. Evade. Lock on again. Fire again. Evade again. One Ceranthian fighter was struck and exploded midair. Two others were hit, trailing thick smoke. The 10 ships were struck, transforming into fiery orbs within the cosmos. Meanwhile, the stellar fighters also sustained losses. The pilots of Sarandia, possessing significantly more combat experience, adeptly exploited every available condition to engage in fierce dogfights with the stellar fighters. One stellar fighter was hit, forcing its pilot to eject and escape. Two others were struck, unable to eject in time, exploding alongside their craft. 10 ships were hit, vanishing into the void. The aircraft from both sides pursued, entangled, and clashed within the emptiness. Laser beams darted through the void, missiles detonated, and debris scattered chaotically. The scene was a tumultuous spectacle, yet profoundly heroic. The battle raged on for a full 12 hours. After this relentless engagement, all of the over 8,000 orbital cannons on the periphery of the Xenu's system were obliterated. Of the 12 capital ships, 11 were sunk, while one, severely damaged, managed to escape and is now unaccounted for. Out of 5,000 space fighters, more than 4,000 were lost, leaving fewer than 1,000 to retreat back into the safety of the system. Conversely, the expedition fleet, comprising 24 Conqueror-class capital ships, emerged battered, but not a single one was sunk. The majority of losses were among the space fighters. 237 stellar fighters were downed, with 182 pilots perishing and 55 rescued after ejecting. In terms of auxiliary vessels, 3 sustained hits from stray projectiles, 2 suffered minor injuries, and 1 was heavily damaged, yet none were sunk. The total casualties numbered around 3,000, coupled with the 26,000 from 3 months prior. The expedition fleet has suffered nearly 30,000 losses. However, this pales in comparison to the devastation faced by the Sarandia civilization. Their orbital cannon positions, 8,300, were entirely destroyed, 12 capital ships, 11 sunk and 1 damaged, and over 4,000 space fighters downed, resulting in casualties of at least 500,000. The ratio stands starkly at 17-1. In the administrative center of the Xenu's system, Governor Jinyan gazed at the holographic display where the once vibrant points of light had turned to gray. Over 8,000 orbital cannons gone, 12 capital ships lost, 5,000 space fighters, now fewer than 1,000 remain, 500,000 Sarandians dead. Meanwhile, the enemy loomed ominously at the periphery of the system, watching with predatory intent. Jinyan closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, and upon opening them, issued his final command. All civilian facilities were to initiate emergency evacuation protocols, and all capable personnel were to retreat to underground fortifications. His voice, hoarse yet resolute, echoed, "Prepare for ground combat." Outside, the orange-red star continued to burn quietly, but beneath its glow, the fate of the Xenu's system had been sealed. The fleet of the Yanhuang civilization would not relent, for their purpose was never merely to dismantle orbital cannons, sink warships, or eliminate fighters. Their aim was conquest, to transform the Xenu's system into a forward base for the Yanhuang civilization. Jinyan was uncertain how long they could withstand ground combat, but he knew he would persevere until the very last moment. Because he is the governor of the Xenu galaxy. Because he is a Ceranthian. Because as long as there is breath in him, he will not surrender. On the bridge of the Conqueror 001, at the periphery of the Xenu galaxy, Qin's expeditionary forces gazed at the holographic screen displaying the now quiet points of light, remaining silent for an extended period. 12 hours of fierce combat and the sacrifice of 3,000 souls had resulted in the complete clearance of the galaxy's periphery. Now, the path to the interior of the Xenu galaxy was open. Orders were dispatched. The entire fleet was to rest for 72 hours. Chapter 241. Complete elimination of the peripheral threat, 72 hours. For the expeditionary fleet that had just endured a brutal battle, these 72 hours represented a precious opportunity to breathe, to recuperate, and attend to their wounds. Inside the Conqueror 001, busy figures moved about everywhere. Repairs on damaged areas, the organization of fallen comrades' remains, maintenance of equipment, and the replenishment of munitions, all were underway. Moreover, those who remained alive needed time to process all that had transpired during those 12 hours. On the E7 level, in the leisure and entertainment area, the antique-style promenade was eerily quiet. In a nearby tea house, a few soldiers sat scattered about. Dressed in casual attire and holding cups of tea, their gazes drifted toward the invisible void beyond the window. Wang Jiangwo and Li Weiguo occupied their usual spot by the window. The tea on the table had long since cooled. 3 days, Wang Jiangwo murmured, in 3 days. We will engage in battle again. Li Weiguo nodded silently. Outside, on the promenade, a few soldiers in black uniforms strolled by, their steps slow, resembling both a leisurely walk and a trance. Further away, several logistics personnel in light blue uniforms sat in small groups on benches. Their expressions mirrored those of the soldiers, hollow and bewildered, as if they had yet to awaken from the nightmare of 3 days prior. It was said that no one was left aboard Logistics 015 and Medical 008. Wang Jiangwo's voice was soft, over 20,000, just like that, gone. Li Weiguo lifted his cup of cold tea and took a sip. We in 009 are not faring much better. Over 2,000 lost, and several hundred were blown away. Though most were rescued, 60 or 70 are still unaccounted for. Wang Jiangwo fell silent for a moment before suddenly asking, Weiguo, do you think we can make it back alive? Li Weiguo paused, then shook his head. I don't know, but I do know that if we do not fight, our descendants may never have the chance to survive. Wang Jiangwo regarded him for a long time, then nodded slowly. Indeed, the two fell silent once more, simply sitting quietly and observing the empty promenade outside. Meanwhile, at the administrative center of the Xenu galaxy, Governor Jian sat in his office, gazing at the orange-red star outside. 3 days had passed. For 3 days, the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization had made no move. They hovered silently at the galaxy's periphery, quietly resting, repairing, and waiting. Jian understood what they were waiting for. They were waiting for the next attack. This time, the assault will not originate from the peripheral orbital cannon positions. This time, they shall advance into the core of the galaxy, drawing closer to the second planet, known as Xenus by the Sarantians. Governor. The voice of the deputy resounded from the doorway, the report from the third planet. Jin Yin turned to face him. The deputy presented a holographic data display. 5 million troops are fully deployed. The defense systems have completed their final adjustments. The orbital cannon positions are fully operational. All laser defense platforms are activated. The underground facilities can accommodate the entire personnel, awaiting the enemy's entry into range. Jin Yin gazed at the report, pausing in silence. The third planet, an uninhabited, barren rock, exceeding 20,000 kilometers in diameter, devoid of atmosphere, characterized solely by endless stone and desert, has been transformed into a colossal fortress over the past few years. 5 million Sarantian soldiers, thousands of small orbital cannons, countless laser defense platforms, and a deeply buried command center compose this unyielding bastion, akin to an indomitable interstellar warship, silently guarding the essential route to Xenus. If the fleet of the Yanhuang civilization wishes to approach the second planet, it must traverse near the third planet. And at that moment, Jin Yin's voice remained calm. Inform the garrison of the third planet to prepare for battle. The enemy shall arrive shortly. 3 days later, the expeditionary fleet completed its rest. 24 Conqueror-class capital ships returned to optimal condition. Damaged sections were repaired, expended ammunition replenished, and the remains of the fallen meticulously organized and archived. 3 million interstellar warriors resumed their positions. Yet, General Qin did not issue the command to advance into the galaxy. Instead, he gave an unexpected order. Information reconnaissance teams. Conduct a comprehensive scan of the Xenus system. Mark all potential threats, anomalous regions, and suspicious targets. Identify one, eliminate one. Orbital cannon units, stand by. For the next fortnight. The periphery of the Xenus system became a target range for the orbital cannons. A small asteroid, approximately 50 kilometers in diameter, floated quietly at the edge of the system. It appeared to be an ordinary asteroid, devoid of any anomalies. However, the gravitational sensing system indicated something amiss in its internal mass distribution. Conqueror 009, target locked. Fire. A 10,000-ton projectile was launched at 0.8 times the speed of light towards the asteroid. 50 seconds later, the projectile struck its target. In that instant, a massive crater erupted on the asteroid's surface, revealing a metallic sheen beneath. Subsequently, countless lasers erupted from within the asteroid, attempting to intercept the impending projectiles. But it was too late. The first projectile had already torn away its camouflage. Confirmed target, a military stronghold masquerading as an asteroid. General Qin's voice was calm, yet ruthless. Continue the assault until it falls utterly silent. 3 more projectiles soared forth, all striking true. The military stronghold camouflaged as an asteroid, along with the 3,000 Saranthian soldiers within, dissolved into a cloud of metallic vapor in the void. In another direction lay an expanse of seemingly empty emptiness. However, electromagnetic spectrum scans revealed faint energy fluctuations. Conqueror 012, target area, commenced saturation fire. 36 orbital cannons discharged simultaneously, their projectiles blanketing every corner of the void. One of the rounds struck something. Suddenly, a brilliant explosion illuminated the darkness. A Saranthian stealth reconnaissance vessel revealed itself amidst the flames. Then, more projectiles struck it, and the vessel, along with its 200 crew members, vaporized in an instant. Thus, day after day, the orbital cannons fired, round after round. Those potential threats marked as disguised asteroids, stealth reconnaissance ships, suspicious space debris, and even certain anomalous regions of the asteroid belt were all targeted by the cannons. Some, upon being struck, exhibited no response, confirming their ordinary nature. Others retaliated, indicating that the suspicions were indeed correct. Once they began to counterattack, they drew down even fiercer retaliation, not just 1 or 2 rounds, but 10, 20, 30, until that area was devoid of any energy fluctuations, devoid of any life signals. Half a month later, all identified potential threats were eradicated. The periphery of the Xenus system was rendered completely secure. Chapter 242, The Indomitable Interstellar Warship. Yet, the Qin forces knew the true threat still lay within. On the holographic star map, the third planet of the Xenus system coursed steadily along its orbit. This was a rocky planet with a diameter exceeding 20,000 kilometers. At this moment, it occupied a position between the second planet, Xenus, and the expedition fleet. To reach Xenus, one must traverse its vicinity. It itself served as a natural barrier. The intelligence reconnaissance team presented the scan results of the third planet. Detailed data unfolded layer by layer on the holographic screen. Diameter, 23,000 kilometers. Mass, approximately 3 times that of Earth. Surface, rocky and desolate, devoid of atmosphere and life. Orbital period, approximately 400 days. Rotational period, approximately 30 hours. Following this were the analysis results of the gravitational sensing system. Within the planet lay numerous artificial structures. These structures were scattered underground, at depths ranging from hundreds of meters to several tens of kilometers. They were not naturally occurring geological formations. They were military bases. Defensive fortifications, the true threat the Saranthi had concealed on the third planet. A cold smile crept upon the lips of the Qin commander. Indeed, they intended to transform this planet into an indomitable interstellar warship. In the underground command center of the third planet in the Xenus system, Commander Tai Yan of the 5th Legion stood before the holographic screen, fixated on the approaching light points. For the past fortnight, he observed as those peripheral outposts were systematically eliminated, one after another. The camouflaged asteroids were destroyed, and the invisible reconnaissance vessels met the same fate. Those carefully laid ambushes, traps, and watchpoints he had meticulously arranged were all eradicated by the enemy with the most blunt and straightforward methods. The adversaries were exceedingly cautious, so much so that they refrained from entering the inner system, opting instead to bombard the outskirts with orbital cannons. Their prudence extended to spending half a month clearing those outer positions rather than hastily advancing inward. Yet, Tai Yin remained unperturbed. The true lethal strike did not reside in the periphery, it was here, on the third planet. With 5 million troops, tens of thousands of small orbital cannons, countless laser defense platforms, and a command center deeply buried underground, should the enemy fleet dare to enter the range of the third planet, they would soon learn the true meaning of an interstellar bastion. Relay the orders. Tai Yan's voice was steady. All systems on the third planet are to remain on standby. Once the enemy enters range, unleash a full barrage. Let them experience the might of the Ceranthians. On the bridge of the Conqueror 001, Qin Zhongguan gazed at the massive rocky planet displayed on the holographic star map, pausing in silence for a moment. Then, he issued an unexpected command. Orbital cannon units. Prepare for action. Target, surface of the third planet. Ammunition type, standard shells. Firing mode, saturation fire. Calculate firing parameters based on the planet's orbital and rotational data. Fire around every 60 seconds, adjusting the angle with each volley. His voice remained remarkably calm. Plow the surface of the third planet for me 3 times. Everyone on the bridge was momentarily taken aback. Plow 3 times. That was a planet with a diameter of 20,000 kilometers. How many shells would it take to plow it 3 times? No one had calculated, but all understood it was an astronomical figure. The head of the intelligence reconnaissance team was the first to respond. Commander, do you mean to strike preemptively? Qin Zhongguan nodded. This planet must possess a vast array of defensive installations. Should our fleet recklessly enter its range, we would incur significant losses. However, if we act first to obliterate all its surface defenses, his gaze fell upon the grayish-white planet on the holographic map. Then it will become a dead star. The orbital cannon units began their calculations. 30 seconds later, the first round of fire commenced. 24 Conqueror-class ships unleashed a simultaneous barrage of 864 orbital cannons. 864 10,000-ton shells hurtled towards the third planet at 0.8 times the speed of light. They would arrive in 80 seconds. Within those 80 seconds, the cannon units were already preparing for the second round of fire. 60 seconds later, the second round would commence. Another 60 seconds for the third round, followed by the fourth, fifth, and sixth rounds. Every 60 seconds, 864 shells would be launched toward the 20,000-kilometer diameter planet. This was a massacre without smoke. In the underground command center of the third planet, alarms blared throughout the base even before Tai Yin had issued his orders. A multitude of incoming projectiles has been detected. The count stands at 864. They are expected to arrive in 80 seconds. The mass of the projectiles is approximately 10,000 tons. They travel at 0.8 times the speed of light. The target encompasses the entire surface of the planet. In an instant, Tai Yan's complexion turned ashen. How could they? How dare they? Did they not intend to penetrate deeper into the star system? Were they merely planning to bombard from orbit? All defense systems, engage maximum interception. Tai Yan's roar echoed through the command center. The orbital artillery positions unleashed their projectiles toward the incoming threat. The laser defense platforms activated at full power. 80 seconds was barely sufficient to issue commands. Then, the first batch of projectiles arrived. The surface of the third planet was instantly engulfed in countless bursts of flames. The orbital artillery stationed on the planet's surface fired frantically in a last-ditch effort to intercept the incoming projectiles just before their arrival. The Ceranthian interceptors, traveling at 0.5 times the speed of light, charged toward the incoming projectiles from the Yan Huang civilization. In the void, several thousand kilometers from the planet's surface, the two waves of projectiles collided. Boom, boom, boom. Countless fireballs erupted. Some projectiles were struck, exploding midair. Others narrowly missed, continuing their descent. A greater number pierced through the interception net, heading straight for the planet's surface. Boom. One projectile struck an orbital artillery position. The site, along with hundreds of Ceranthian soldiers nearby, was vaporized in an instant. Boom. Another projectile impacted the energy center of a laser defense platform. The ensuing explosion triggered a chain reaction, obliterating all facilities within a 3-kilometer radius. Boom, boom, boom. Projectiles struck the planet's surface one after another. Each impact created a crater several kilometers in diameter. Each explosion signified the instantaneous disappearance of thousands of Ceranthian soldiers. Within 80 seconds, the first batch of 864 projectiles had all arrived. Approximately 300 were intercepted, while over 500 struck the planet's surface. 500 craters. 500 instances of devastation. This was merely the first wave. The second wave approaches. 864 projectiles, expected to arrive in 70 seconds. Tai Yan's voice had turned hoarse. Continue interception. Persist. The second wave of projectiles arrived. Again, over 300 were intercepted, while more than 500 struck the surface. The third wave, the fourth wave, the fifth wave. Each round consisted of 864 projectiles. Each round saw hundreds of projectiles striking the surface. Each round resulted in the disappearance of tens of thousands of Ceranthian soldiers amidst the explosions. The surface of the third planet began to transform beyond recognition. The meticulously deployed orbital artillery positions, the laser defense platforms constructed with immense resources, the command posts and fortifications buried deep underground, All were systematically annihilated under the relentless barrage of orbital artillery. Some positions, before being hit, were still frantically launching interceptor projectiles. Then, the next projectile would fall upon them. The positions vanished. The gunners disappeared. Everything was erased. Tai Yin stood in the command center, gazing at the holographic screen where the luminous points were rapidly dimming. Each of those points represented a defensive stronghold, manned by hundreds, even thousands, of Sarandian soldiers. Yet now, those lights were extinguishing in droves. Commander, the voice of his deputy trembled with anguish. Our interceptors are depleting too swiftly. At this rate, in just 3 hours, we will exhaust all our munitions. Tai Yin offered no response. 3 hours? After 3 hours, the enemy would continue their onslaught. How long could they persist? A day? 2 days? 3 days? He was uncertain, but he understood that as long as the enemy's projectiles continued to rain down, the defensive systems on the third planet would be gradually consumed, gradually annihilated. And they were utterly powerless, for the enemy did not even enter their range. The adversary merely hovered at the periphery, striking with orbital cannons, one shot after another. Like target practice. Like plowing the earth. The 6th round. The 7th round. The 8th round. The counterattacks from the third planet grew increasingly feeble. It was not a lack of will to retaliate, but rather the absence of means to do so. Most of the orbital cannon positions, laser defense platforms, and missile silos had been obliterated. The remnants were barely holding on. With every wave of incoming projectiles, they were compelled to launch thousands of interceptors. However, those interceptors required time to manufacture and resources to replenish. Under the relentless bombardment from the enemy, the pace of production and resupply was far outstripped by the rate of consumption. By the 24th round, the interceptors on the third planet had been entirely exhausted. The following projectiles fell unimpeded, crashing directly onto the planet's surface. Boom, boom, boom. The projectiles struck the already battered strongholds, pounding into areas devoid of defensive structures, landing on the land that once housed 5 million Sarandian troops. The 48th round, the 72nd round, the 96th round. Time passed day by day amidst the whistling of projectiles. On the first day, there were still sporadic counterattacks on the third planet. By the second day, the counteroffensive had nearly vanished. On the third day, it ceased entirely. Yet the orbital cannons of the Yanhuang civilization showed no signs of stopping. The Qin War army declared they would plow 3 times. 3 times meant covering the entire surface of the planet from end to end. They were only at the first pass. On the 5th day, Tai Yin had gone without sleep for a full 5 days. The holographic screen now displayed that all the lights representing defensive strongholds had been extinguished. Of the 5 million stationed troops, fewer than 500,000 remained alive. Those who survived had retreated to the deepest underground fortifications, too fearful to emerge. For the projectiles continued to fall relentlessly upon the surface. Over the span of 5 days, he could not fathom how many tens of thousands of projectiles had rained down upon this planet. 100,000? 200,000? 500,000? He did not know. He only knew that when he occasionally summoned the surface images, what he beheld was no longer the familiar rocky planet. It had transformed into a veritable hell. The planet's surface had been utterly ravaged. Those once undulating mountains had been flattened to the ground. The formerly unfathomable canyons were now filled and blasted open by projectiles. The once barren deserts were now riddled with countless craters, each one nestled against another, some with diameters spanning dozens of kilometers, others measuring several. The crust had been breached. From the deepest and largest craters, magma surged forth. This was the high-temperature material from within the planet, triggered by the tremendous impact of the projectiles. Gushing forth through the fissures in the crust, the magma flowed along the edges of the craters, forming streams of searing liquid, which were then rapidly cooled by the frigid temperatures of space, solidifying into blackened rock. New craters were blasted open, new magma erupted, cooled, blasted, and cooled again. The entire surface of the planet had morphed into a tumultuous, boiling sea of magma, forever restless. Viewed from space, the once grayish-white rocky planet now resembled a colossal fireball melting away. Its surface was adorned with crimson cracks, the very veins of flowing magma. Between these fissures lay countless black patches, remnants of rock that had cooled and been shattered anew. The entire planet seemed on the brink of collapse, as if it could disintegrate at any moment. On the bridge of the Conqueror 001, Qin Zhanggu looked at the holographic star map displaying the unrecognizable planet, pausing in silence. 5 days. 5 days of bombardment. How many projectiles had been fired? He had grown weary of counting. The leader of the intelligence reconnaissance team cautiously reported, "Commander, all defensive facilities on the surface of the third planet have been confirmed destroyed. The survival rate of the 5 million Sarantia garrison is expected to be less than 1%. The surface has been comprehensively covered at least 3 times, with some areas exceeding 10. Shall we continue the assault?" Qin Zhanggu shook his head. Enough. If we continue, the planet will disintegrate. Although its disintegration holds little consequence, should the fragments be propelled towards the second planet, it may adversely affect our subsequent operations. He paused. Orbital cannon units, cease fire. Intelligence reconnaissance team, rescan the third planet. Once confirmed safe, designate it as a secure zone. 72 hours hence, the fleet will advance into the inner system. In the command center, Tai Yin slumped in his chair, staring at the cold text on the holographic screen. All defensive facilities on the surface confirmed destroyed. Garrison survival rate, approximately 0.8. The planet's surface is no longer suitable for any military operations. Recommendation, abandon the third planet. Remaining personnel retreat to the second. The words abandon struck Tai Yin like daggers to his heart. 5 million troops. 5 days of effort. Only 40,000 remained. And those survivors were now cowering in the deepest underground fortifications, too afraid to emerge. Because the surface outside is a tumultuous sea of molten lava, how can they retreat? There are no spacecraft, no means of transportation. Even if there were, they would not dare to venture out, for the enemy fleet looms just beyond. Chapter 244. Testing the defensive firepower. Taigang closed his eyes, fully aware that the third planet had met its demise. He understood that the fewer than 40,000 survivors had little chance of enduring, for the enemy's next target would undoubtedly be the second planet, home to 200 million Solandians. Could they withstand the onslaught? He did not know. All he recognized was that, in the face of the enemy's orbital cannons and the relentless bombardment that seemed to blanket everything, nothing could possibly withstand such fury. The administrative center of the Xenu system. Governor Jinyan gazed at the final report from the third planet, remaining motionless for an extended moment. 5 million troops, 5 days, and merely 40,000 survivors. While the enemy had suffered not a single loss, he lifted his gaze to the orange-red star outside the window. Its light remained warm and tranquil, yet under its glow, the third planet had transformed into a melting dead world. How long could the second planet, Xenu, endure? Jinyan did not know. But he was resolute in his determination to hold on until the very last moment. For he was the governor of the Xenu system. He was a Solandian. As long as there was breath in his body, he would not surrender. 72 hours later, the expedition fleet commenced its advance into the depths of the Xenu system. 24 Conqueror-class capital ships glided past the remnants of the third planet. Through the viewing windows, the warriors beheld the planet, now unrecognizable. Its surface was a roiling ocean of lava, countless fissures crisscrossing, the entire planet trembling slightly. Some warriors gazed silently at the planet, while others smirked with cold amusement. More simply regarded it with blank expressions before returning to their tasks. The debris of the third planet drifted slowly through the void. The once 20,000-kilometer diameter rocky planet was now utterly transformed. The rolling lava cooled rapidly in the vacuum of space, forming layers of black, glass-like crust. Countless cracks intersected, revealing a dim crimson glow from within the fissures. This was the still molten lava struggling to surge forth from the planet's core. The entire celestial body resembled a colossal fruit in decay, on the verge of complete disintegration. The expedition fleet passed alongside it, continuing its advance deeper into the system. 30 million kilometers ahead lay the second planet, Xenu, that blue planet of life, the home to 200 million Solandians. On the bridge of Conqueror 001, Qin Zhangjing stood before the holographic star map, focusing intently on the approaching planet. The intelligence reconnaissance team reported the scanning results of the second planet. The holographic screen unfolded the detailed data layer by layer. Diameter, approximately 15,000 kilometers. Quality, 1, 3 times that of Earth. Atmosphere, composed primarily of nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, with a similarity to Earth's atmosphere of approximately 70%. Surface, about 60% covered by oceans, 40% consisting of land. The land is dotted with the cities, villages, farmlands, and industrial zones of the Solandians. Population, approximately 200 million, predominantly concentrated in coastal regions across 3 continents. Key highlights. The voice of the Qin war machine resonated with a calm demeanor, marking the political, energy, and industrial centers, as well as densely populated areas. On the holographic screen, these critical targets were meticulously highlighted. Red dots densely populated the planet's surface. The orbital cannon units stood ready. Target, highlighted regions. Firing rate, single calibrated shot. Commence. 864 electromagnetic orbital cannons simultaneously began adjusting their angles. This time, it was not a saturation fire. It was a probing strike. An attempt to ascertain the extent of defensive firepower concealed on this planet. The first round of fire targeted the most significant political center in the northern hemisphere. It was a colossal dome-shaped complex, serving as the administrative heart of the Xenon system, the office of the governor of solid rock located therein. A 10,000-ton projectile hurtled toward its destination at 0.8 times the speed of light. 125 seconds later, it reached the edge of the atmosphere. Then, countless lasers erupted from the planet's surface. These were the Solandians' defense systems deployed within the atmosphere. Laser turrets, particle beam emitters, and anti-air missile positions all opened fire, attempting to intercept the incoming projectile. The lasers struck the projectile, vaporizing its surface instantaneously, yet the core continued its descent. More lasers persisted in their assault, while particle beams joined the interception. Missiles launched from the ground, rushing toward the projectile. Boom! A missile struck the projectile. It detonated mid-air, erupting into a massive fireball. However, within that blaze, countless fragments continued to plummet, crashing onto the ground surrounding the political center, raising clouds of dust. The political center itself remained unscathed. Yet, all defensive firepower had been revealed. Recording. The Qin war machine observed the newly manifested dots on the holographic screen, around the northern hemisphere's political center. Approximately 300 laser turrets, about 120 particle beam emitters, and around 50 missile positions were identified. The next round aimed to eliminate them. The second round of fire targeted those recently exposed defensive positions. 864 orbital cannons, this time, engaged in saturation bombardment. The projectiles were divided into numerous groups, each directed toward those firepower points. This time, the Solandian defense system could not hold. The laser turrets desperately fired in an attempt to intercept before the projectiles arrived. Yet, there were too many projectiles, and they were too swift. Boom. One laser turret was struck, vanishing along with everything in its vicinity in an instant. Boom. Boom. More turrets were hit. Particle beam emitters were struck. Missile positions were compromised. Ammunition depots detonated. Flames erupted one after another around the political epicenter of the northern hemisphere. 125 seconds later, the first barrage of destruction was completed. The defensive firepower surrounding the political center had been utterly obliterated, yet the center itself remained unscathed. However, the vicinity was reduced to ruins. The third round targeted the energy center, the fourth aimed at the industrial hub, and the fifth focused on the defensive positions at the periphery of densely populated areas. Each round commenced with a probing shot to lure out defensive fire, followed by a subsequent saturation strike to eliminate the exposed positions. By the end of the day, nearly one-third of the defensive capabilities on the second planet had been eradicated. Yet, the Ceranthians were not foolish. They swiftly realized that firing back would invite devastating retaliation. Thus, they fell silent as the sixth probing shot soared towards an energy center. Not a single laser was discharged, nor did any missile ascend. In Chapter 245, Ceranthia, never enslaved, they could only watch helplessly as the projectile descended, striking the core of the energy center. Boom. The energy center was leveled. General Cheen observed the newly ignited flames on the holographic screen, a cold smile curling at the corners of his lips. Did they think silence would shield them? Naive. The next round would continue the probing. No crucial target would be spared. If they chose not to defend, the targets would be directly annihilated. If they opted to defend, the firepower would first be dismantled, followed by the obliteration of the targets. Either choice led to demise. On the seventh day, a full week of orbital bombardment had transformed the visage of the second planet. Viewed from space, the once blue and beautiful orb was now marred with countless blemishes, regions struck by orbital artillery. Some were political centers, reduced to charred ruins. Others were energy centers, directly hit, their explosions altering the local terrain. Industrial centers, factories, equipment, and warehouses had all been turned to ash. While General Cheen had ordered to avoid direct strikes on residential areas, the defensive positions built near them inevitably affected the surroundings during the cleansing process. Over the course of 7 days, the Ceranthians on the second planet suffered losses exceeding 50%, 100 million souls. 100 million Ceranthians either perished under the bombardment, succumbed to grievous injuries, or vanished amidst the rubble. Those who survived were now huddled in underground shelters, trembling in fear, for they understood that the true nightmare had yet to conclude. 300 meters beneath the surface of the administrative center of the Xenu system, the rock-solid governor sat in his office, gazing at the holographic screen displaying the once vibrant points of light that had now turned gray. These points had represented critical facilities on the planet. The political center, gray. The energy center, gray. The industrial center, gray. The military command center, gray. All defensive positions, gray. 7 days. It had taken merely 7 days. In a realm once brimming with 200 million souls, desolation now reigns supreme. The adversary has suffered not a single loss. Not even a solitary warship. Jian Yin closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, then opened them to activate the communication device, establishing a connection to the home planet. 60 light-years away lay the mother world of Saransha, where the Grand Elder and his fellow counselors were engaged in deliberations regarding the ongoing conflict. Suddenly, a communication request materialized on the holographic screen, originating from the Xenu's system, Cinder, Jian Yin. The Grand Elder's hand quivered slightly. An ominous premonition crept over him. He accepted the call. Jian Yin's visage appeared on the holographic display, his complexion pallid, eyes bloodshot, yet his spine remained erect. Grand Elder, he spoke. His voice hoarse but composed. The Xenu's system has fallen. A profound silence enveloped the council chamber. After a lengthy pause, the Grand Elder inquired, "Are you certain?" Jian Yin nodded, stating, 7 days. They took merely 7 days to obliterate all our defensive capabilities. Now, their spacecraft have breached the atmosphere, commencing the eradication of our remaining strongholds. Ground combat is but a matter of time. I send this communication to inform you. He hesitated. The Xenu's system shall not surrender. The Grand Elder remained silent for a moment before asking, "What do you intend to do?" Jian Yin refrained from a direct answer, instead offering a bittersweet smile imbued with pride and resolve. "I will ensure that the Huangyan civilization understands that the Sarantians are not so easily conquered." The communication abruptly ended. The Grand Elder gazed at the blank holographic screen, motionless for an extended period, acutely aware of the implications. 300 meters beneath the administrative center of the Xenu system, Jian Yin severed the link with the mother world and activated another communication channel. This channel reached every surviving Sarantian on the second planet, every individual, every family, every civilian trembling in their shelters, and every soldier grasping a weapon, ready to fight. "My compatriots," his voice resonated through the communication device, reaching every corner of the planet. "I am Jian Yin, the governor of the Xenu system. I have an announcement to make." He paused. The Xenu system has fallen. An eerie silence enveloped the communication channel. Those listening may have anticipated this outcome, yet hearing it spoken aloud carried a weight of its own. 7 days. The enemy had dismantled all our defenses in a mere 7 days. Their fleet remains in orbit, and their spacecraft have now entered the atmosphere. Soon, their ground forces will descend upon our lands. I know many of you are frightened, afraid of death, of suffering, of losing your loved ones. I share in that fear. Yet fear serves no purpose, for the enemy will not spare us simply because we tremble. The voice of the stalwart began to resonate with strength. Our ancestors, 30 millennia ago, established the first tribe on our home planet. They confronted ferocious beasts, calamities, and the harshness of nature. They did not waver. 3,000 years prior, our civilization embarked on the exploration of the cosmos. Faced with the unknown universe and the boundless darkness, they did not falter. 3 centuries ago, we commenced the colonization of other star systems. Confronting alien worlds and an unpredictable future, they did not retreat. Now, the enemy has arrived. They are mightier than we are. They possess velocities tenfold that of light, projectiles weighing tons, and warships spanning 50 kilometers. But what of it? We still have this planet. We still possess this land. The voice of the stalwart grew fervent. The dignity of the Sarantians. From this moment forth, I shall no longer command you as your governor. For the Xenu system is devoid of a governor now. Henceforth, each of you must fight for yourselves. Arm yourselves, seek refuge in the ruins, and lay in ambush. After their ground forces land, let them comprehend what true warfare entails. Let them realize that the Sarantians are not lambs awaiting slaughter. Drawing a deep breath, the stalwart summoned all his strength and bellowed those 8 words. Sarantia shall never be enslaved. Countless voices echoed in unison over the communication channel. Sarantia shall never be enslaved. That roar emerged from underground bunkers, from the ruins, and from the hearts of every living Sarantian. The sound reverberated across the planet. It pierced the atmosphere, reaching into the boundless universe, though no one could hear it. Chapter 246. To fight for dignity, a faint smile graced the stalwart's lips. In the office, he found himself alone. He retrieved an object from the drawer, an electromagnetic pistol. It was issued during his tenure as governor and had never been used until now. He pressed the muzzle against his temple, closed his eyes, and softly uttered a phrase. Xenus shall never fall. He pulled the trigger. The electromagnetic pistol emitted a soft hum. The sound of the accelerator igniting, the report of a bullet leaving the chamber. It signified the end of a life. The small bullet pierced his skull at a tremendous velocity. The stalwart's body slumped gently in the chair. Blood poured from his temple, trickling down his cheek and dripping onto the floor. Yet, the communication device remained active. That gunshot resonated through the unclosed channel, reaching every Sarantian who was listening. A hum echoed in the ears of countless individuals. Then, silence enveloped the atmosphere. Everyone understood what that gunshot signified. Their governor was dead. He had ended his own life by his own hand. He did not perish in battle. Yet he fought not to be captured, not to be humiliated, but to demonstrate that the Sarantians could choose their own manner of death. In the communication channel, the sound of weeping emerged, alongside furious shouts. Some silently grasped their weapons, bracing for battle, while others directed the same weapons at their own temples. A gunshot rang out. Again, another shot followed. The echoes of gunfire reverberated through the communication channels, each shot signifying an individual choosing to follow the steadfast rock into oblivion, representing those unwilling to confront the impending fate. Across countless corners of the second planet, similar scenes unfolded. In the ruins of a devastated city, a young Sarantian mother clutched her 3-year-old child, hiding in a basement. The child, oblivious to the chaos, gazed with wide, innocent eyes at the mother. Tears streamed silently down the mother's face as she realized the horrors awaiting them if captured. She understood that alone, she could not protect her child. Trembling, she picked up a small knife, directing it towards the child's chest. Her hand shook violently, the blade leaving a faint mark of crimson on the child's skin. The child cried, the sound piercing her heart like a dagger. Finally, her hand fell limp, the knife clattering to the ground. She embraced her child tightly, breaking into sobs. She could not do it. She truly could not. Perhaps survival itself was a wrong choice. But she could not bring herself to take her child's life. In another corner, a group of Sarantian soldiers distributed weapons, 3 grenades, an electromagnetic rifle, and 5 magazines for each. They were instructed to avoid direct confrontation, to lie in ambush amidst the ruins, waiting until the enemy was within range to strike and shift positions. They intended to make it clear that every stone on this planet served as a weapon, and that the Sarantians would never surrender. The soldiers quietly accepted their arms and then dispersed into the wreckage. In their eyes resided fear, anger, and determination. They understood that this war was one they could not win, yet they also knew that to refrain from fighting meant a true defeat, not merely of life, but of dignity. On the bridge of Conqueror 001, the intelligence reconnaissance team reported numerous electromagnetic signals detected within the atmosphere of the second planet. Analysis suggested these were internal communications of the Sarantians. One segment appeared to be the final address of their governor, Steadfast Rock. The content had been decrypted. Commander Chin of the Zhan army glanced over the decryption document. His gaze lingered momentarily on the last 8 words. Sarantia shall never be enslaved. He remained silent for a moment before setting the document aside to continue monitoring. He then turned to the commander of the space fighter squadron. Prepare the ground forces for aerial deployment. Let the Sarantian people be aware that their proclamation of never being enslaved is but a mere slogan in the face of absolute power. The commander nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Commence mass entry of the spacecraft into the atmosphere. The black warplanes surged forth, obscuring the sky like swarms of locusts as they traversed the heavens above the second planet. Their objective was the remnants of the defensive strongholds. Those Sarantians, trembling in their underground shelters, caught glimpses of the aircraft through the crevices. They flew low, close enough to discern the pilots within the cockpits. Clad in black combat uniforms and helmets, the pilots' expressions were inscrutable. They merely passed overhead, then unleashed their bombs. Boom, boom, boom. The remaining strongholds were obliterated in the ensuing explosions. The Sarantians, huddled in the ruins, quaked at the sound of each detonation. Some began to regret, wishing they had met their end like Jian Yan. Others felt a surge of anger, directed at the cruelty of their foes and their own helplessness. There were also those who turned to prayer, beseeching a deity, whose existence was uncertain, to deliver them. Yet, the divine did not arrive. Instead, more warplanes descended. More bombs fell, and death loomed ever closer. The Xenu system had fallen. On the second planet, 100 million Sarantians had perished. The remaining 100 million awaited their fate. Once a beautiful blue planet, it now lay ravaged. Viewed from space, the areas struck by orbital cannons resembled hideous scars embedded on the planet's surface. Surrounding these scars were countless ruins, innumerable corpses, and an ocean of hatred. On the bridge of Conqueror 001, Qin Zhangwan gazed at the planet and then issued his next command: commence ground troop deployment. He paused. The Yanhuang civilization has arrived. Countless transport ships emerged from the auxiliary vessels, carrying thousands of star warriors, plunging toward the atmosphere of the second planet. Those dark figures blossomed into parachutes in the sky, gracefully descending onto this alien world. Their feet touched Sarantian soil for the first time. Their eyes beheld the desolation and charred earth for the first time. Their hands gripped their electromagnetic rifles, prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. On the ground, countless Sarantians hid amidst the debris, watching the figures descend from the heavens. Their eyes reflected fear, anger, hatred, and despair. Yet, no one surrendered, at least not yet. For Jinyan's words echoed in their ears: Sarantia shall never be enslaved. They were unaware of how long this mantra could sustain them, but they knew that as long as they drew breath, they would continue to fight, even if only for their dignity. Even if it is merely to convey to the distant civilization of Yanhuang that the Sarandians are not so easily subdued. On the bridge of the Conqueror 001, Qin Zhangjuan gazed at the myriad of luminous dots on the holographic screen, the descending star warriors, and a slight smile graced his lips. The war has only just begun. Relay the orders. Within 72 hours, eliminate all resistance forces on the second planet. After 72 hours. He paused. The Xenu system will officially be incorporated into the territory of the Yanhuang civilization. Chapter 247. Landing Forces Conqueror 009, Hangar Bay. The instant the alarm resonated, Wang Zhengwo sprang into action. A 5-second equipment check, 10 seconds to burst through the hatch. These actions had become instinctual over time. 5 years and 7 months of travel. 3 months of combat, countless drills, and numerous real battles had honed his movements to a precision of milliseconds. The hangar was a bustling sea of activity. The black combat suits glimmered coldly under the lights. Soldiers formed orderly lines, boarding the landing craft that had already opened its hatches. Each landing craft could accommodate 100 fully armed warriors. Wang Zhengwo's 3rd Battalion was assigned 32 landing craft. He strode towards the 7th craft. Flanked by familiar faces, Li Weigua and the other 98 comrades from their unit. Quick, quick, quick. The battalion commander's roar erupted over the comms channel. All aboard within 1 minute. Those who exceed the time will remain on the ship for reflection. No one wished to be left behind. 5 years of travel. 3 months of combat. This moment was what they had awaited. Wang Zhengwo dashed into the landing craft, found his seat, secured his safety belt, checked the magazine of his electromagnetic rifle, and ensured all functions of his combat suit were operational. Beside him, Li Weigua performed the same actions. Their eyes met. No words were exchanged, only a nod, understanding passing silently between them. The hatch of the landing craft slowly closed. The interior lights shifted to a dim red, signaling the imminent transition to combat mode. 3rd Battalion, all set. The battalion commander's voice echoed through the channel. Landing sequence. 1st Company in the 1st wave. 2nd Company in the 2nd wave. 3rd Company in the 3rd wave. Upon landing, immediately deploy and establish a defensive perimeter, awaiting further orders. Remember, once down, if you encounter any Sarandians, be they elders, children, or women, execute them without hesitation or mercy. This is an order. Silence enveloped the comms channel. There were no questions, no objections. For 3 months prior, the sacrifice of 26,000 comrades during an encounter had imparted a profound lesson. Mercy towards the enemy is cruelty towards oneself. The landing craft launched. A gentle tremor signaled its detachment from the Conqueror 009 as it plunged towards the cerulean planet. Through the viewport, Wang Zhengwo beheld that world, the second planet, Xenu. Viewed from space, it remained stunningly beautiful. Vast blue oceans, white clouds, green lands, strikingly reminiscent of Earth. However, those mottled, charred regions, scars left by the orbital cannon's onslaught, served as a stark reminder that this was not Earth. This was the enemy's homeland. This was a battlefield. The landing craft began its descent into the atmosphere. Outside the viewport, white clouds rushed toward them, followed by violent tremors caused by atmospheric friction. The landing craft's energy shield activated to its fullest extent, warding off the searing temperatures and shockwaves. Suddenly, a blinding beam of light shot up from the ground, striking the side of the craft. The entire vessel quaked violently, alarms blaring within the cabin. Laser attack. The pilot's voice crackled through the channel. Portside shield energy reduced by 30%. Target locked. Coordinates reported. In less than 3 seconds, a patrolling space fighter roared past, dropping 2 bombs toward the source of a laser fire. Boom, boom. The flicker of flames on the ground was faintly visible through the viewport. The concealed laser turret had been obliterated. Continuing the descent, the pilot's voice regained its composure. The shield energy was sufficient to support their landing. Wang Zhengwo took a deep breath, gripping his electromagnetic rifle tightly. On the ground, Valera, a Saranthian, trembled in the basement of a partially collapsed building. She was an ordinary resident of Xenu's prime, 127 years old, still considered youthful among her kind. Previously, she had worked at a food processing plant in the city, toiling 8 hours a day, strolling with friends in the suburban parks after work, and dining with her parents on weekends. Those days felt like a distant memory. 3 days prior, the orbital bombardment had commenced. On the first day, the military base in the northern part of the city was annihilated. The second day saw the energy center in the east reduced to rubble. By the third day, the government building in the south had become a wasteland. Then, the ominous black aircraft began to appear in the skies. They flew low enough for her to discern the bombs hanging from their bellies. They patrolled relentlessly, dropping bombs on any suspected weapon targets, reducing them to mere fragments. Valera had no idea whether her parents were still alive. Communication had been severed, and she could reach no one. She only knew that the survivors of the city, like her, were hiding in various basements, awaiting their fate. Outside, a tremendous roar suddenly erupted. It was the landing craft. The enemy's ground forces had arrived. Valera's body began to tremble. She was uncertain of what awaited her, but she instinctively felt that it would not be good. She curled up in the corner, hugging her knees, burying her head, trying to make herself smaller still, until she could not be detected. Yet, the footsteps grew ever closer. The landing craft settled steadily onto an open square. The moment the hatch opened, Wang Jiangwo was the first to leap out. The night vision of his combat suit activated automatically, rendering everything around him in vivid green. The square was surrounded by half-collapsed buildings, the streets littered with rubble and debris, and distant flames flickered in the background. 3rd Battalion, establish a defensive perimeter. The voice of the company commander resonated through the channel. 1st Platoon, secure the east side. 2nd Platoon, the west. 3rd Platoon, hold the center with me. Wang Jiangwo and Li Weigua, part of the 1st Platoon, advanced towards the eastern district. Their footsteps were swift yet light, thanks to the sound dampening system in their combat suits, allowing them to traverse the rubble without generating excessive noise. Activating life scanner. Wang Jiangwo whispered. Instantly, a semi-transparent scanning image appeared on the holographic display within his helmet. The surrounding buildings, debris, and streets were vividly rendered on the screen. Suddenly, red dots emerged. 50 meters ahead, within a partially collapsed structure, 3 life signals were detected. Target identified, Wang Jiangwo reported, sharing the coordinates. Confirmed. Came the voice of the company commander. Proceed with caution and eliminate the threat. Exchanging glances, Wang Jiangwo and Li Weigua stealthily approached the building. 50 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters, they reached the perimeter. Through the combat suit's scanning capabilities, Wang Jiangwo could distinctly observe the locations of the 3 red dots. Huddled motionless in a corner of the basement. Hand grenade, Li Weigua announced as he retrieved a high-explosive grenade from his waist, setting a 3-second delay before tossing it through a shattered window. Boom. The shockwave erupted from the basement, accompanied by a cloud of dust and debris. The 3 red dots vanished. Threat neutralized, Wang Jiangwo reported. Continue advancing. They pressed on, as similar scenes unfolded throughout the city. On another street, Wei Jiqiang maneuvered his chariot mech, progressing slowly. The 36-meter-tall machine reverberated with each heavy step, yet within the ruins, that thunderous sound became a harbinger of dread, signaling the lurking Saranthians that death had arrived. Target detected. The mech's life scanner identified multiple life signals underground, 200 meters ahead. Wei Jiqiang raised his right arm, aiming the 300mm electromagnetic cannon in that direction. Requesting confirmation to fire. Confirmed, came the command from the command center. Eliminate the target. With a low hum, the electromagnetic cannon discharged, its projectile traveling at an imperceptible speed towards the target. Boom. The ground erupted into a massive crater. The original underground fortifications had vanished. The several red dots all disappeared. Elimination complete, Wei Jiqiang reported, then continued his advance. Through the mech's cockpit, he surveyed the ravaged cityscape, crumbling ruins, charred debris, and the occasional lifeless body of Saranthians who had perished in the prior bombardment, unable to find refuge. He knew not the lives they had led. He only recognized them as foes. Enemies deserved no mercy. Vera heard the footsteps drawing nearer, distinctly human, starkly contrasting the light tread of the Saranthians. Crouched in a corner, she held her breath with all her might, bracing for the inevitable. The door to the basement is a formidable slab of metal. She hoped that this barrier would deter them, wished they were merely passing by, and then, boom. The metal door, along with its frame, was violently breached by an overwhelming force. A blinding light surged into the basement, emanating from some tactical flashlight. The beam swept across the room, ultimately resting upon her. Vela beheld the figures before her, clad in black combat uniforms, wearing dark helmets and wielding black rifles. They stood there like statues of obsidian, devoid of expression, lacking any warmth. Then, one of them spoke. The language was unintelligible to her, yet the tone conveyed a clear message. A living one has been discovered. Another raised his weapon, aiming directly at her. Vela opened her mouth, yearning to plead, to explain, but then, gunfire erupted. The bullet from the electromagnetic rifle pierced her chest at an alarming velocity. Vela's body fell backward, landing on the cold floor. Her eyes remained open, gazing up at the ceiling of the basement. Above, a crack allowed a faint glimmer of light to seep through. That light grew increasingly blurred and dim, until it vanished completely. Wang Jiangwo lowered his weapon and cast a glance at the fallen Saranthian woman. She appeared young, likely not older than 150 years. Yet her eyes remained wide open, the darkness of her pupils reflecting the dim light of the basement. He averted his gaze and pressed onward. There was no time for lamentation, no time for hesitation. On the battlefield, only life and death mattered. He did not wish to perish. Thus, the enemy must be vanquished. The battle raged on for a relentless 72 hours. During this time, 2 million ground forces of the Yanhuang civilization, accompanied by 10,000 Xingtian mechs and supported by tens of thousands of spacecraft, advanced through streets and alleys, meticulously clearing building after building. Those Saranthians hiding among the ruins attempted to resist, firing any available weapon, electromagnetic rifles, laser pistols, even knives, at the landing forces. They were swiftly gunned down. Some tried to flee, bursting from the basements and sprinting toward the city's outskirts, only to be shot down mid-flight. Others sought to surrender, raising their hands, kneeling on the ground. pleading for mercy in their native tongue. They too met the same fate. The order was clear. Upon sighting any Saranthian, eliminate immediately, regardless of age, gender, or perceived threat. Total annihilation was mandated. 3 days later, in the district where Wang Jiangwo operated, there were no living Saranthians left. The ruins were strewn with corpses, some intact, others mutilated, and some reduced to mere fragments by explosive blasts. The air was thick with the acrid stench of blood and gunpowder, a nauseating blend. Yet, Wang Jiangwo had grown accustomed to it. Over the past 3 days, he had personally executed at least 30 Saranthians, armed soldiers and unarmed civilians alike, young men and elderly women. A child, appearing barely more than a mere infant by the reckoning of the Saranthians, roughly equivalent to 8 or 9 human years, was discovered trembling in the crevice of a collapsed structure, his large, dark eyes wide with terror. Wang Jiangwo fired his weapon. The child's body fell backward, those eyes remaining open in death. In that moment, Wang Jiangwo was reminded of his own child. He could not bear to imagine a scenario in which an alien intruded upon his home, weapon drawn. He resolved that such a day must never come to pass. Thus, every Saranthian here must perish, for only in this way could he ensure that his child would never confront a similar fate. In another sector, Wei Jiqiang's armored mech stood resolutely in the center of a street. Over the past 3 days, he had obliterated countless Saranthian hideouts with his electromagnetic cannon and dispatched numerous foes attempting to approach his mech with a particle blade. The armor of the mech was stained with the dark, viscous blood of the Saranthians, which had solidified in the vacuum of space. His communication channel buzzed with orders from command. The resistance in the third operational zone had been largely eradicated. Cease advance and hold position. Wei Jiqiang exhaled, leaning back in his pilot seat. After 3 days of relentless combat, even with his genetically enhanced physique, he felt a wave of fatigue wash over him. He lifted his gaze through the cockpit of the mech, observing the world beyond. The setting sun cast a dark crimson hue over the ruins. In the distance, several spacecraft streaked across the sky, casting shadows upon the ground. Nearby, among the rubble, he could faintly discern the movements of comrades in black combat suits, engaged in mopping up the battlefield. Chapter 249. The Xenu system now belongs to the Yanhuang civilization. Wei Jiqiang recalled the words of Commander Qin Zhanggu, spoken 3 months prior when they had first arrived in this star system. War is never for the sake of destruction. It is to ensure that future generations need not fight. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, then opened them again, prepared to remain on standby. Deep underground, in a well-concealed fortress, dozens of Saranthians huddled together. They were the last survivors of the city. For 3 days, they had listened to the sounds of gunfire, explosions, and screams outside, one by one vanishing into silence. They knew it was only a matter of time before their turn would come. Let us surrender, a young female Saranthian whispered, perhaps believing that capitulation might grant them survival. Surrender? A middle-aged man scoffed bitterly. Have you not heard the gunfire outside? They leave no survivors. All who are found perish. Then what shall we do? Just wait here to die? Another voice quivered with despair. Silence enveloped the fortress. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed from outside. It was the sound of the mech. They have come, the middle-aged man rasped. They have finally arrived. The footsteps grew closer, finally halting above the fortress. A resounding voice echoed forth, emanating from the mech's loudspeaker, proclaiming in Sirlantian, those below, come forth. The individuals within the structure exchanged apprehensive glances. A call to emerge? Not a direct assault? A final warning. If you do not appear within 10 seconds, elimination will ensue. 10 seconds. This was their sole chance for survival. The middle-aged man was the first to rise, making his way towards the exit. One by one, the others followed suit, pushing open the doors of the structure and ascending. At last, they emerged above ground. Before them loomed the colossal figure of the 36-meter-tall Xingtian mech, its ominous barrel aimed directly at them. Beside the mech stood a dozen individuals clad in black combat attire. One among them raised an electromagnetic rifle, directing it at the group. Kneel, the human commanded in Sirlantian. They complied, dropping to their knees, hands clasped behind their heads. Then, the gunman turned to his companion, uttering a phrase in their native tongue. The middle-aged man could not comprehend the words, yet he sensed that their fate might not be as dire as immediate execution. Perhaps, there remained a glimmer of hope. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the communication channel. We have discovered a group of survivors. What should be done? The commander's response was swift. Detain them. There are new orders from above. All living Sirlantians are to be captured. Wang Jiangwo paused, taken aback. Capture? Wasn't the directive to eradicate them all? The orders had changed. The voice of the squad leader conveyed a hint of confusion. The rationale was unknown, but a command was a command. Convey them to the designated assembly point. A transport vessel will arrive. Wang Jiangwo surveyed the kneeling Sirlantians, falling into thoughtful silence. Then he sheathed his weapon. Rise, and follow us. The Sirlantians stood, heads bowed, trailing behind them towards the assembly point. Wang Jiangwo led the way, his mind replaying the tumultuous battles of the past 3 days. In a combat unit of 3,000. How many Sirlantians had perished? He could not fathom. He only knew that he had personally slain over 30. What fate awaited those who were captured? He remained uncertain. Yet, as it was an order, it must be executed. The war had concluded. The subsequent phase was one of occupation, of dominion, of enslavement. 72 hours later, the large-scale resistance on the second planet had been largely quelled. 200,000 ground troops and 10,000 Xingtian mechs had systematically eradicated city after city, block after block, and basement after basement within 3 days. Those Sirlantians discovered were either shot on the spot or apprehended and imprisoned. Approximately 3 million individuals had been captured, accounting for 1/3 of the survivors. The remainder were either deceased or still in hiding. Viewed from the expanse of space, the second planet continued its silent rotation. However, the once thriving cities had been reduced to ruins. The once vibrant lands had become graveyards. The once thriving population of 200 million Ceranthians has dwindled to less than 10 million. On the bridge of Conqueror 001, Qin Zhangguan gazes at the holographic display, where the concentrated dots representing the imprisoned beings flicker before him, a faint smile gracing his lips. The war has been won. In the vastness of the cosmos, resources are abundant. Metals, energy, minerals. Every galaxy boasts countless asteroids and inexhaustible deposits, ripe for the taking. What is truly scarce, however, is the intelligent species, the spoils that can be studied, enslaved, and exploited. Those Ceranthians who remain alive are the first bounty harvested by the Yanhuang civilization from 50 light-years away. They will be transported back to the Yanhuang continent and placed into laboratories. This is the fate of the vanquished. This is the future that the Ceranthian civilization must confront. Qin Zhangguan turned, his gaze fixed upon the now tranquil planet. Relay the order. Ground forces transition to an occupation status. Continue the hunt for any remaining Ceranthians. Leave none behind. Xenu system. He paused. From this moment forth, it belongs to Yanhuang. Xenu star, northern hemisphere. An area has been completely cleared. Once, this was a city inhabited by Ceranthians, home to millions just 3 months prior. Now, every structure has been reduced to rubble, every remnant meticulously cleared away, leaving only flat land and boundless emptiness. In the center of this void stands a hastily erected platform. Atop the platform, a flagpole, towering over 10 meters, reaches toward the heavens. Beside the flagpole stands Qin Zhangguan and a cadre of senior commanders from the Expeditionary Force, all clad in formal black military attire, their expressions solemn. Surrounding the platform are tens of thousands of Yanhuang warriors, dressed in black combat uniforms, arranged in precise formations, resembling a vast ocean of darkness, quietly awaiting the moment. Further afield, a holographic camera crew has completed their setup, aimed at the flagpole from various angles. This moment will be recorded. It will be inscribed in the annals of history. Qin Zhangguan cast his gaze skyward. The sky above Xenu star is a soft, reddish-orange hue, a reflection of the atmosphere. A few white clouds drift lazily by, as if also in anticipation. He refocuses his attention, stepping forward to stand beneath the flagpole. Raise the flag. His voice reverberates in the stillness. 2 soldiers step forward. One cradles a neatly folded flag, while the other gently unfurls it. Chapter 250, The Bonfire Gathering. It is a blue flag adorned with a golden dragon. The deep blue symbolizes the boundless universe, while a golden dragon winds around the representation of the Milky Way. The spiral star map, composed of countless stars, is entwined by the dragon's form, as if the entire galaxy lies under the dominion of the Yanhuang civilization. The soldiers secure the flag to the ropes of the flagpole. Then, the standard-bearer slowly pulls the rope. The blue flag ascends, gradually rising against the backdrop of the orange-red sky. The wind blew from afar, stirring the banners, and the colossal golden dragon unfurled in the breeze. As if it had come to life, soaring above the Milky Way. A profound silence enveloped the arena. Tens of thousands of warriors simultaneously raised their right fists, striking them against the left side of their combat uniforms. The sound resonated in perfect unison, akin to the heartbeat of a single entity. Yanhuang. The voice of the Qin army echoed in the stillness. Yanhuang. The chorus of thousands merged into a mighty torrent, surging towards the heavens. Yanhuang. 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 The banner ascended to its pinnacle, fluttering audibly in the wind. The blue banner emblazoned with a golden dragon proudly waved for the first time on an alien planet 60 light-years away. In the distance, the Ceranthians, confined within makeshift camps, caught sight of the flag through the gaps in the fencing. They were unaware of its significance, yet they understood that from this moment forth, this planet was no longer theirs. Following the flag-raising ceremony, the soldiers began to rotate towards the new star for respite. After 5 years of space travel and 3 months of fierce combat, with the sacrifice of over 20,000 comrades, the tension among all was strung too tight. It was time to unwind. The first batch of approximately 500,000 troops began to transfer from the Conqueror-class battleships to Xenu's star. The black landing craft moved like flocks of migratory birds, shuttling back and forth between space and the surface. As each craft descended and its doors opened, throngs of soldiers surged forth, stepping onto the soil of this alien world. Some knelt down to touch the earth, while others gazed upwards, inhaling the air infused with extraterrestrial essence. Many simply stood in quiet contemplation, savoring the solid ground beneath their feet, a sensation unattainable during their cosmic odyssey. 5 years had passed. For more than 5 years, they had resided within steel-clad vessels, with metallic floors beneath and ceilings overhead, and unchanging warped starlight visible through the windows. Now, they finally stood upon genuine soil. Although this planet was unfamiliar, the air bore a slightly peculiar scent, and the gravity was marginally stronger than that of Earth. What did it matter? This was land. Land upon which one could stand firm. Land upon which one could lie back and gaze at the sky in reverie. Old Wang. Li Wei's voice called from behind. Wang Zhangwo turned to see Li Wei was striding towards him, his face adorned with a rare smile. Come, let us go relax for a bit. The two walked side by side towards the camp. The encampment had been established, not as a temporary military tent, but as a genuine rest area. Simple housing, a dining hall, bathrooms, and recreational areas. Every conceivable facility had been swiftly erected by the engineering corps over the past few days. Though rudimentary, for those who had spent 5 years in space, this was nothing short of paradise. As night fell, the sky over Xenu's star lacked a moon. Yet the star shone exceptionally bright. The light from distant stars poured down almost unimpeded. In the center of the camp, a bonfire blazed to life. Not merely a multitude, but an innumerable array. Those bonfires, ignited with wood gathered from the vicinity, burned with a subtle blue flame, a beautiful yet eerie sight, characteristic of the trees of the Saranthia people. Encircling each bonfire, the warriors sat in a circle, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames, finally adorned with smiles after enduring 3 months of bloody conflict. The logistics team, comprising 1,000,000 women, also joined the gathering, clad in garments of various hues. They traversed between the bonfires, offering an assortment of delectable dishes and fine wines to the warriors. These culinary delights were sourced from the reserves of the expedition fleet, featuring meats and vegetables native to the continent of Yanhuang, meticulously prepared dishes, and a variety of snacks brought from Earth. The wines, too, hail from Earth, encompassing an array of spirits, white wine, red wine, beer, and rice wine, all readily available. By the bonfires, the warriors began to unwind. Some leaned against one another, engaging in hushed conversations, while others held their cups aloft, gazing dreamily at the night sky. A few, already slightly inebriated, began to hum the folk tunes of their homeland. The atmosphere gradually became lively. Come taste this, called out a warrior from the Cloud Province, brandishing a plate of sizzling skewers, traversing among the bonfires. He had procured the ingredients from the logistics team and had roasted them himself, though lacking in spices. It was a veritable feast for those who had subsisted on synthetic food for 5 long years. Delicious, exclaimed another warrior, taking a hearty bite and mumbling praise. Brother, your skills are impressive. Of course, replied the Cloud Province warrior with a proud smile. We've been grilling since childhood. When herding cattle, we would dig a pit on the hillside, gather some kindling, and could roast the most fragrant meat. Is it customary for you to grill while tending cattle? Not obligatory, just a habit. When one has leisure time, why not seek out something to eat? The two continued to eat and chat, the bonfire's glow dancing upon their faces. From a distance, a sudden uproar arose near another bonfire. Dance, dance, dance. Someone began to cheer. Wang Zhangwo and Li Weigua turned towards the sound and beheld several warriors from the Cloud Province who had risen to stretch their limbs. Then, one of them dragged in a portable speaker, seemingly acquired from nowhere. Upon switching it on, a rhythmically vibrant tune surged into the night air. It was traditional music from the Cloud Province's ethnic minorities, intertwined with modern electronic beats, exuding an aura that was both ancient and contemporary. Come on, shouted the warrior with the speaker, beginning to sway to the music. His movements were far from professional, yet the genuine joy emanating from him captivated everyone around. Others soon joined in the dance. Some hoisted chairs for reasons unknown, while others lifted empty wine boxes. Those who found nothing to carry resorted to hoisting their comrades instead. The warrior being lifted bore no resentment. He simply rested on the shoulder of another, laughing and continuing to drink. By the flickering light of the campfire, a group of individuals, each bearing various items, began to circle around the flames. Their movements were a delightful tapestry of clumsiness, fluidity, exaggeration, and subtlety. Yet every face was adorned with laughter as they danced and reveled in the moment. The people from Yun Province were a lively bunch, eliciting a chuckle and a shake of the head from Li Weigua. Wang Zhangwo joined in the laughter. Come on, let us join them. Huh, I can't dance. Learn on the go. What is there to fear? With that, Wang Zhangwo took Li Weigua by the hand and led him toward the bonfire, where an increasing number of revelers gathered. The warriors from Gui Province brought forth their mountain songs, their vocalizations raw yet imbued with a unique flavor. The fighters from Wan Province contributed snippets of Huangmei opera, their melodic tones adding an exquisite charm to the atmosphere. The soldiers from Yu Province showcased the postures of their local opera, clad in combat attire, yet their movements were precise and graceful. The warriors from the northeast engaged in the Yonga dance, exhibiting a surprising proficiency that seemed learned from some distant source. Meanwhile, the soldiers from Sichuan immersed themselves in the Guozhuang dance, a traditional Tibetan form, performed with fervor despite their unfamiliarity. By the campfire, warriors from diverse regions expressed their joy in their own distinctive ways. No one found it strange, nor did anyone feel out of place. For this fleeting moment, they were not soldiers. They were merely a band of wanderers, separated from home for 5 years, reminiscing under the alien stars of another world, honoring their blue planet in the ways of their homeland. A team of photographers moved gracefully between the bonfires, capturing the essence of that moment. They documented the joyous faces, those dancing, drinking, and reveling, as well as the camaraderie shared amidst the chaos of carrying speakers and chairs. They immortalized the shimmering eyes illuminated by the firelight, reflecting a deep yearning for home. Wei Jiqiang had also arrived, having changed into casual attire to blend into the crowd. As a mecha pilot, the weight of his responsibilities often surpassed that of ordinary soldiers. In battle, he had obliterated countless targets with electromagnetic cannons and dispatched numerous foes with his particle blade. Those haunting images replayed in his mind all too frequently. Yet now, by the campfire, amidst the music, those memories began to fade. He raised a cup of drink to his lips, savoring it slowly. Jiqiang, a familiar voice called out. Wei Jiqiang turned to find Wang Zhangwo and Li Weigua approaching him. Old Wang, Weigua, you're here too. Of course. Who wouldn't seize such a splendid opportunity? Wang Zhangwo said with a grin as he settled beside him. So, feeling more relaxed? Wei Jiqiang nodded. Much better. That is great. Wang Zhangwo patted his shoulder. Now let us dance. But I can't. Learn as you go. We just picked it up too. Now we can manage a few steps. After a moment's hesitation, Wei Jiqiang stood up, following them toward the liveliest bonfire. The music swelled, and the crowd grew denser. The bonfire's glow illuminated the entire campsite, and those carrying speakers remained the brightest stars of the evening. They circled around the bonfire, with each rotation drawing in more participants. Gradually, the circle expanded, growing large enough that one had to run to keep pace with the rhythm. Those who could not bear the speakers began to carry other items. Some hoisted empty bottles, others lifted the grill, while some grasped wooden sticks whose origins were unknown. Remarkably, a few even carried the charming ladies from the logistics team. The women, lifted high, laughed exuberantly, waving their hands and greeting those around them. More ladies joined the dancing throng, adorned in dresses of myriad colors, swirling in the firelight like a flock of delicate butterflies. Some warriors found familiar service personnel and pulled them into the dance, while others simply sat quietly at the side, smiling as they observed the lively scene. No one spoke of military discipline. To do so at this moment would be a dampener on spirits. Moreover, even the usually stern officers mingled among the crowd, joining in the merriment. The company commander, a middle-aged man typically known for his stern demeanor and sharp reprimands, was now spinning around the bonfire, chair in hand. More exuberant than anyone else, the young first sergeant, known for his serious nature and lack of humor, was dancing face-to-face with a logistics staff member. His movements as stiff as a robot, yet the foolish grin on his face betrayed his joy. High-ranking commanders of the expeditionary force, though hesitant to join the dance, sat by the bonfire, holding their cups and watching the vibrant scene unfold, their faces adorned with rare smiles. Among them was Qin Zhonghua, observing the joyous warriors, a complex expression flickering in his gaze. These individuals had, merely 3 months prior, been drenched in blood on the battlefield, wielding weapons that claimed the lives of countless Ceranthians. They witnessed comrades fall, enemies perish, and saw the planet reduced to ruins under their onslaught. Those haunting images would linger in their memories, perhaps never to be erased. Yet now, they could still laugh, dance, and frolic with the innocence of children. This is the essence of a true warrior, capable of combat, skilled in killing, yet also able to unwind and relish the simplest joys. Qin Zhonghua raised his cup toward the night sky and softly uttered, "To you all." The night deepened, yet the bonfire blazed on. The music continued, and the crowd swelled, the circle widening. Warriors from across the Dragon Kingdom expressed their longing for home in their unique ways. The soldiers from Yun Province remained the most vivacious of the assembly, carrying speakers, chairs, and anything they could manage, circling the bonfire time and again, their faces radiant with smiles. Meanwhile, the warriors from Gui Province began to sing in harmony. One mountain peak echoed a line, and another responded, creating an illusion of mountains even in the absence of them. The soldiers from Wan Province commenced performances of classic Huangmei opera scenes, though devoid of costumes and props. Every frown and smile exuded profound charm. The warriors from Hunan commenced a wrestling match, a traditional pastime of the Central Plains. 2 figures embraced, rolling upon the grass as the crowd erupted in cheers. The soldiers from Sichuan began to engage in lively conversation, surrounding one another and exchanging tales of their hometowns, recounting childhood stories and reminiscing about the times that can never be reclaimed. The warriors from Northeast China initiated a skewered feast, grilling an abundance of meat as they ate, drank, and chatted merrily. The fighters from Hunan unveiled their spicy sauces, sharing them with those nearby, delighting in the sight of others jumping about from the heat, their laughter echoing in the air. The soldiers from Hubei began to play a game of finger-guessing, forming pairs where one would call out while the other responded. Losing meant drinking, while winning brought forth hearty laughter. The warriors from Shaanxi unleashed a thunderous chant of Qin opera, their raw, unrefined voices reverberating through the night sky, seemingly proclaiming to this alien land, "We have arrived." Chapter 252. The green flowers in the military by the bonfire, a cacophony of sounds intertwined, the melodies of music, the harmonies of song, the echoes of laughter, the calls of games, and the thuds of wrestling. These sounds merged into a torrent, surging towards the night sky, reaching out to the unfamiliar stars. Those stars gazed back, observing this group of humans from a distant Earth, expressing the most primal joys of life in their unique manner on this strange planet. The women of the logistics team had fully embraced the revelry. No longer mere servers of tea and wine, they immersed themselves in the celebration. Some danced with the soldiers, their swirling skirts resembling blooming flowers in the firelight. Others joined in drinking, downing cup after cup, their cheeks flushed with warmth. Some sang alongside the warriors, the music, rhythm, and joy resonating in unison. A girl from the east, pulled into a dance by a group of soldiers from Yunnan, swayed to the rhythm despite not knowing the steps. It mattered little, as her movements were filled with enthusiasm, her smile brighter than the flames. A girl from Europe sat by the bonfire, listening to a soldier from Hunan recount tales of his homeland. She grasped the longing in his voice, the tenderness woven within his nostalgia. They were acutely aware of their roles. They understood that, within this expeditionary force, they were mere instruments, pressure valves, companions for the soldiers' relaxation. Yet, in this moment, no one pondered such thoughts. In this instant, they too were human. The bonfire blazed deep into the night. The music resonated until late hours. Laughter persisted long into the darkness. The flames continued to burn, dancing in the night wind, casting warm hues upon everything around. Those who had been dancing with the speakers finally grew weary, sitting in small clusters by the bonfire, sipping drinks, engaging in conversation, relishing this rare moment of respite. Wang Zhengwo also took a seat, holding a cup of wine, observing his jovial comrades with a hint of a smile curling at the corners of his lips. It has been over 5 years since I have laughed, danced, and lost myself in joy so freely. Just a moment ago, as I leapt about in wild abandon, it felt as if I had expelled some long-buried emotion from within me. A sense of relief washed over me, an exhilarating comfort. Beside me, Li Weiguo was also laughing. His face aglow under the flickering flames, revealing a rare expression of relaxation. His cup had been emptied halfway, and as his gaze wandered to the distant figures still whirling about, he murmured, "These folks from Yun province truly know how to stir things up." Wang Jiangwo chuckled in response. "It's good to stir up a ruckus. If we can still make noise, it means we are alive." Li Weiguo nodded in agreement, yet chose not to elaborate. A silence enveloped them for a moment as they continued to sip their drinks. In the distance, Wei Jiqiang sat beside another bonfire. Not one to revel in chaos. Although he had been pulled into a few circles of dance, he had quickly withdrawn. Now, he sat alone, lost in thought, gazing at the flames. The pressure of being a mech pilot weighed heavier than that of an ordinary soldier. Throughout 3 months of combat, he had obliterated countless targets with an electromagnetic cannon and felled numerous enemies with a particle beam sword. Those haunting images replayed in his mind during the quiet of the night. Yet now, beside the bonfire, amidst the laughter, those memories seemed to fade slightly. He took a deep breath and finished the remaining wine in his cup. A sense of comfort enveloped him once more. As the night deepened, the bonfire continued to blaze. Those who had exhausted themselves in dance began to gather around the fire, engaging in casual conversation. They spoke of their hometowns, their families, childhood memories, and the times that could never be revisited. "Hey, do you all remember that song?" A soldier with a Sichuan accent suddenly inquired. "Which one?" "The Green Flower in the Army." A hush fell over the group. The song had long been forbidden within the ranks, not because it lacked melody, but because it was too beautiful. Its haunting notes stirred up feelings of nostalgia, provoking tears that could unsettle the spirit of the troops. Yet at this moment, on this alien planet 50 light-years away, beside this bonfire, the Sichuan soldier began to hum softly. "The cold wind drifts, leaves fall, the army is a green flower. Dear comrade, do not think of home, do not think of mother." His voice was faint, almost swept away by the night breeze, yet those around him still listened intently. Silence enveloped the bonfire as that voice floated in the night air. "Day and night, I call out, how many heartfelt words, do not shed tears at parting. The barracks are our warm home." No one joined in the song, but the warmth of emotion began to well up in everyone's eyes. Wang Jiangwo held his cup aloft, frozen in midair. "The cold wind drifts, leaves fall. The army is a green flower. Dear comrade, do not think of home, do not think of mother. Mother." It had been over 5 years since he last saw her. Over 5 years, more than 1,800 days and nights. She was in her 70s now. Was she well? Did her legs still ache? During their video calls, she always reassured him, saying, "I'm fine, don't worry," but he knew those were merely words of consolation. How could a mother not long for her child? How could she not worry? How could she not shed tears in the stillness of night? Wang Jiangwo felt a pang in his heart. A second voice joined in, a hoarse tone tinged with unmistakable sorrow. "Mother, do not fret. I have grown up. Standing guard is to protect our nation, unafraid of wind and rain." Then came a third, a fourth, and soon a chorus of voices chimed in, harmonizing with the melody that echoed by the bonfire, drifting in the night breeze, resonating in every heart. They offered heartfelt blessings for their mothers, wishing them health and longevity, longing to return home in celebration and to reunite with their beloved mothers. Wei Jiqiang's eyes also glistened with unshed tears. "Mother." He recalled her face, always smiling during their video calls, yet the tears at the corners of her eyes were impossible to conceal. "As long as you return alive, I will be happy," she always said. Alive. He yearned to return, to see his mother once more, to savor her cooking, to hear her gentle nagging, to embrace the woman who gave him life. But could he truly return alive? There were still many battles to fight, numerous foes to vanquish, and countless unknown dangers awaiting him ahead. Would he make it back? He did not know. All he understood in that moment was his overwhelming longing for his mother. An ache deep within. Li Weiguo was already in tears. The man who never flinched in battle now bowed his head, his shoulders trembling with quiet sobs. He thought of his wife, Chen Jing, the woman who had smiled at him during their New Year's Eve video call, promising reunion after the war. He recalled her, managing their 2-year-old daughter Nyonyo alone while juggling work and motherhood. He remembered her reassuring words during every video call, telling him everything was fine at home and not to worry.